Welcome to r/relationships, where Karen is demanding her husband print a book for her at work. My wife wants me to print a 150-page cookbook on a work printer. I don't want to. My wife and I had a bit of a disagreement recently, and I wanted to get some outside perspectives. It's nothing serious, just one of those little married forever arguments that pops up from time to time. For some context, my wife put a ton of effort into compiling a collection of recipes into a dinner cookbook. She spent weeks gathering, testing, and organizing recipes. I helped out by combining 50 1- or 2-page recipes into a single PDF. She was super excited to have this all done and ready to print as a nice, organized book. Here's where the issue started. She asked me to print the cookbook at my work. I work at a university, and I'm part of an IT committee that specifically looks into misuse of company resources. So yeah, using the office printer for personal projects is a pretty big no-no. On top of that, I've always been a stickler for following rules, and I don't like being a hypocrite. Her argument was that it's just 150 pages and that I should do it because it's for her. She even pointed out that she used to work in corporate America and saw this kind of thing happen all the time without anyone caring. We're financially comfortable, so I suggested we print it through FedEx or a similar service instead. I even offered to handle the whole process myself to make it easier for her. That didn't go over well. She basically said, "If it's so easy for you to take care of it, why not just print it at work? It's not like anyone will notice or care about 150 pages. To her credit, she's not asking me to print the whole thing in one go. She agrees that something ridiculous, like 1,000 pages, would be way too much. But she can't understand why I care so much about a smaller amount, especially since I'm fine printing a few pages here and there for personal use. I try to explain that there's a difference between printing 5 to 10 pages occasionally and printing a full cookbook. For me, it's about the principle of the thing. I don't want to set a bad example, especially given my role in the IT committee. Her perspective is that rules like this are meant to be flexible. She's always been a bit more comfortable bending the rules if it means saving time, money, or effort, while I'm more of a pay a little extra to do the right thing kind of guy. She keeps saying, "This isn't some moral crisis. It's a cookbook, and it's for us. Why are you making such a big deal about this?" I can see her point to an extent. It's not like we're trying to print something frivolous or unethical, but I still feel like it's not worth risking even a minor workplace issue over something we can easily pay for. I've explained this, but she thinks I'm being overly rigid and that it's just another example of me prioritizing my work rules over her feelings. That's not how I see it at all. To me, it's about not being a hypocrite, especially when I'm actively involved in discussions about resource misuse at work. The kicker is that we both know this argument is pretty meaningless in the grand scheme of things. We've been married long enough to recognize when we're just being stubborn with each other. We love each other and have a great relationship overall, but this one little disagreement has been hanging over us for a few days now. She's still annoyed that I won't just do it, and I'm still annoyed that she doesn't seem to get why this matters to me. So Reddit, am I the jerk for not wanting to print the cookbook at work, or is she the jerk for pushing me to bend the rules? Let me know what you think. Just go print it at FedEx and bring it home. Even better if you put them in protector sheets in a binder. Action ends this argument. Yeah, OP needs to shift the discussion back to wife's problem and take control of the solution. Problem, she wants a 150-page color PDF printed and she's unwilling to do it herself. Solution, husband helps. Prints PDF in accordance with his ethical comfort level and whatever other parameters are in play. "I want it printed and I want it printed on your work printer" is not a reasonable thing to say. Or, and this seems like a wild notion to everyone in this thread, she could just go somewhere and get it printed and not ask OP to risk their job over $60. I got fired for something like this. It's not worth the $20 you're saving. I don't understand why this is a feelings thing. Nope, I'm not allowed to print this at work. I'll bring it to FedEx and have it in your hands by Monday evening. Like, why is this a debate? Just do it. Get her an inexpensive printer or get it printed for her somewhere else. You gave her a boundary, and she's insisting you disregard it. You may use the term otherwise loving marriage, but this is likely indicative of underlying problems. Entitled Disney mom cuts the line, so I get her and her kids kicked off the ride. Today was my first time back at Disney since I was 9 years old, and honestly, it was a blast. The magic was still there, but man, the lines were way longer than I remembered. Maybe it's because, as a kid, I was too hyped to care. Anyway, my friend and I had a brilliant idea to use the single rider lines. We didn't care about riding separately, and the shorter wait times were a game changer. Everything was going great until we got in line for one of the bigger attractions. The single rider line was moving along nicely when suddenly this family of 4, mom, 2 daughters, and dad, come waltzing through the line holding hands, literally walking right down the middle like they owned the place. The vibe in the line shifted immediately. People started muttering, and someone asked them what the heck they were doing. The mom straight up lies and says they forgot something on the ride. Like, what does that even mean? How do you forget something on a ride before you've even gotten on it? They pushed their way to the area where the single riders, fast pass, and standby lines all merge. That's when one lady behind me yells, "What did you forget?" The mom just ignores her and keeps moving forward. At this point, everyone in the single rider line realizes what's happening. She wasn't trying to retrieve anything, she just didn't want to wait like the rest of us. Bull doesn't even begin to cover it. The entitlement was insane, but what really shocked me was that no one seemed to be telling the staff. Everyone in our line just started bonding over how ridiculous and rude this lady was. It was one of those unspoken, "we're all in this together" moments. So when my friend and I got to the pre-ride movie area, I decided to speak up. I told a cast member what had happened, described the family, and explained how they had lied to cut in line. He shrugged and said there wasn't much they could do now since they were already in the boarding queue. Great. We finally made it to the car boarding line, and there they were, standing right at the front with smug looks on their faces. I was fuming. I flagged down another employee and explained the whole situation again, hoping for some kind of justice. She nodded, said she'd pass it along, and then walked off in the opposite direction. Helpful, right? Then things got even weirder. One of the daughters ran back and grabbed the arm of a man standing behind my friend and me. "Come on, Dad," she said. We all turned around, and sure enough, it was the dad from earlier. But here's the kicker. He refused to join them. He just stood there, looking at the ground, while everyone around him started muttering louder and louder. You could feel the collective frustration building. People were saying stuff like, "What kind of example are you setting for your kids?" And "Who do they think they are?" Dad clearly wanted no part of it. He kept letting people pass him while his wife and kids inched closer to the front. By now, the whole line was openly trash-talking them, and they could definitely hear it. Mom still looked like she was on a mission, though. She had that "I'm not backing down" energy. But the dad, the guy looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. That's when I decided I'd had enough. I asked the people in front of me if they minded me stepping ahead to warn the ride operators. They were totally on board. Mom was blocking the path, so I tapped her shoulder and said, "Excuse me," with the kind of look that says I wasn't playing around. She moved aside without a word, but I could feel her glaring at me. When I got to the ride operator, I quickly explained what was happening, pointed them out. This lady and her kids cut the entire line through the single rider queue, claiming they forgot something. You can ask anyone here. The operator gave me a nod, and before I even got back to my spot, another woman went up to back me up. The mom started freaking out, trying to say we were lying, but then the entire line chimed in, shouting the same story and making it impossible for her to deny what she had done. The operator called for backup, and soon enough, Disney mom and her kids were being escorted out through a side door. The whole line burst into applause. It was like a scene straight out of a movie. Dad stayed behind, looking completely defeated, probably trying to pretend he wasn't with them. In the end, the ride was amazing, but the real highlight of the day was seeing justice served Disney style. Everyone who waited patiently got their turn, and that family got exactly what they deserved. Am I the jerk for telling my sister's boyfriend it's not his business if I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom? So I'm 22, and I have an older sister who's 28. She has 4 kids, loves being a mom, and dreams of being a stay-at-home mom. Good for her, right? I fully support her doing whatever makes her happy. But here's the thing, I'm not like her. I've never wanted to be a mom, at least not right now, and maybe not ever. 2 of my other older sisters feel the same way, so I know I'm not alone in this mindset. That context is important because it's where this mess of a story starts. My sister's boyfriend, who's 27, has this thing about trying to fix my life. A few weeks ago, he asked me when I was going to settle down. Like, what does that even mean? He then said he could introduce me to one of his friends who's 25 and apparently looking for a stay-at-home wife. I told him no thanks. I wasn't interested in dating anyone this year. That should have been the end of it, right? Wrong. He got all weird and asked why, so I told him the truth. My ex cheated on me 6 months ago into a 3-year relationship, and it left me with trust issues. Simple, honest answer. But no, he couldn't just leave it there. He goes, "You broke up last year. Isn't it time to move on?" Like, thanks for the unsolicited advice, Dr. Phil. I told him it wasn't his business, and he finally dropped it. Or so I thought. Fast forward to 2 days ago, and the topic came up again. Out of nowhere, he asked if I wanted to be a stay-at-home wife and mom. I told him no, again, and that I wasn't even sure if I wanted kids. The man got so defensive, like I had insulted his entire existence. He went on this rant about how his mom was a stay-at-home wife and mother, and I was like, good for her, that's great, but it's not for me. I even said I didn't see anything wrong with that lifestyle, but it's just not what I want. Then he started talking about how not all men are the same. I agreed, but I pointed out that not all women are the same either. He tried to use my sister as an example, saying she wants to be a stay-at-home mom, and I was like, congratulations on finding that with her, but I don't want the same thing. He overheard me talking about getting an IUD with my sisters. We were all chatting while he wasn't even in the room, and that set him off. He came storming in and told me I was ruining God's plan to make me a mom. I told him what I do is none of his business. That's when he lost it and told me to get out of his house. So I left. No drama, no yelling. I just grabbed my stuff and left. Now my sister, the one dating him, is asking me to apologize. She said I shouldn't get an IUD because if I get pregnant, it's God's plan. She also told me I should reconsider being a stay-at-home wife and mom. I told her that not everyone has that dream, and she accused me of disrespecting stay-at-home moms, which is complete nonsense because I've been supportive of her choices from the start. My other two sisters are on my side. They said her boyfriend needs to stay in his lane and stop being so concerned with how I live my life. Now my friends are calling me a jerk. They're saying he's just worried about me and I should respect it. They're also saying I need to become a mom soon, as if that's some sort of obligation. It's ridiculous. So, am I the jerk for telling my sister's boyfriend to mind his own business about me not wanting to be a stay-at-home wife or mom? Honestly, I don't think so, but you tell me. For some clarification, out of my sister's 4 kids, 3 aren't even his. She has a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 3-year-old, and a newborn on the way. Also, I didn't bring up the IUD thing to him. I was talking to my sisters about it when he walked in, overheard, and decided to insert himself into the conversation. I hate conflict, but this guy just pushed all my buttons. No, you're not the jerk. If anything, you went too easy on him. Tell him to buzz off next time. Table left a crappy review after staying nearly 2 hours after close on New Year's night. So last night, I had the ultimate nightmare shift as a server. It was New Year's Eve, and we were to close at 9 p.m. 9 p.m. sharp. But of course, at exactly 9 p.m., a party of 7 rolls in like they've got all the time in the world. Only 3 of them are there to start: Mom, her daughter, and her husband. I go to greet them and let them know, as politely as I can, that the kitchen is closed, so I'll need their orders ASAP. My manager made me do it because he didn't want to. Thanks for that, buddy. Anyway, I go get their drink orders because the bartenders are hounding me about closing up. They're giving me those looks like, hurry it up. So I run back with their drinks, hoping they're ready to order. But nope, they're taking their sweet time chatting away. My manager is now telling me I need to get their order in immediately or they won't be able to eat. So I go back to the table and kindly ask if they can call their friends and get everyone's orders over the phone. Yes, I actually suggested this because the pressure was that intense. While all this is happening, I notice the husband ordered a Blue Moon. I even offered to cut fresh orange slices for him because I'm trying to be extra nice even though it's well past closing. They finally decide what they want, so I put the order in and try to stay calm. Then, while I'm running around trying to keep everything moving, they decide to take a group picture. Do I roll my eyes? No. I offer to take the picture for them, clean off their camera lens, and even compliment how nice they all look. I mean, I'm out here being an actual saint. The baby starts crying at one point, and I'm about to grab something for her to color with, but her pizza arrives and she's instantly happy. Crisis averted. I keep checking on them, offering extra sauce, asking if they need anything, and they keep saying no. Around 9:40 p.m., 2 more people from their group show up. I keep serving them and making sure everything is fine. Then I notice 2 empty plates sitting untouched because there are still more people coming. I ask if I should box up the food, and the mom is like, "No, they're still on their way." At this point, I'm mentally screaming. I tell my manager, and he's furious. He decides to lock the doors because, hello, we closed an hour ago. But I don't want to be rude, so I just keep my mouth shut. Then, the last 2 people finally stroll in at 10 p.m. When I go to check on them again, I notice one guy doesn't have a drink, so I offer to get him some water. He says no, so I walk away. A few minutes later, I start clearing plates and preparing for the end of this marathon. Finally, it's time for the check. They want to split it, of course, because why wouldn't they? The mom leaves me a 4% tip. 4. I'm so shocked, I actually ask, "Did I do something wrong with my service?" She says, "No, you were fine. I just don't have more cash." Cool, thanks for ruining my night. Her friend leaves a whopping 10%, which doesn't even begin to make up for the 2 hours I just lost serving them. By the time they leave, it's 10:40 p.m. We've been closed for nearly 2 hours. I write, "Thank you, Happy New Year," on their checks because, despite everything, I'm still trying to be nice. Then this morning, my manager shows me the review they left online. It's brutal. She complains that I rushed them, asked them to call their friends, and apparently snatched the receipt out of her hand with an attitude and threw the other one onto the table. She also said I need customer service training and shouldn't work on New Year's if I don't want to be there. I was absolutely floored. None of that happened. My manager, who knows me well, even said this review is completely out of character for me. I've always had glowing feedback. I'm the only server at our restaurant who's ever gotten a gift card from corporate for a stellar review, and now this lady is out here trashing my reputation because she didn't want to tip properly. It's just so messed up. I busted my tail for them on a holiday, stayed hours past closing, and this is what I get in return. Unreal. First and foremost, your manager needs to figure out how a reservation was made for 9 p.m. when you close at 9 p.m. Second, the manager absolutely should have been the one to go to the table and address all of this. Am I the jerk because I refused to give my sister the gift she opened at Christmas? So this Christmas, we all gathered at my parents' house. I'm in my mid-30s, and my sister, who's a couple of years younger than me, came along with her husband. They have 2 kids who I absolutely adore. I'm the cool aunt who loves spoiling them, so Christmas is usually a lot of fun. This year, my mom specifically asked for a heated blanket. Since I've learned over the years that trying to coordinate shared gifts with my family is a nightmare, I told my sister and dad ahead of time that I would be the one buying it. They both agreed, and I figured that was the end of it. Fast forward to Christmas morning. We're all gathered around the tree, opening presents. When my sister picks up one of the gifts, I noticed it's the heated blanket I bought for my mom. She and her husband open it and even check the label. I think maybe they're just curious, but no, they don't stop there. My sister starts going on about how amusing the blanket is and how she's always wanted one. Then she says something along the lines of, "Oh, too bad it's not mine," while shooting me a pointed look. Eventually, they hand the blanket over to my mom, who's thrilled with it. We finish opening the rest of the presents, but my sister doesn't let it go. She keeps making little comments about how sad she is that the heated blanket wasn't for her. I just sit there biting my tongue because, honestly, it's Christmas, and I don't want to make a scene. Here's the thing. 2 years ago, my sister was constantly complaining about how cold she was and saying she desperately needed a heated blanket. So, being the thoughtful sister I am, I got her one for Christmas. What did she do? A few weeks later, she told me she wasn't cold anymore and asked if I could exchange the blanket for a specific shirt she wanted instead. It was a hassle, but I went through the trouble of returning the blanket and got her the shirt for her birthday, thinking that would be the end of it. Now, back to this Christmas. My mom, being the kind-hearted person she is, let my sister use the blanket for a bit. That was all it took for my sister to start obsessing over it. Every time she saw me, she would bring up how much she loved the blanket and wished she had one. At one point, my mom even jokingly suggested she should ask me for one for her birthday. I stayed quiet at first, trying to brush it off, but after hearing it a few too many times, I finally snapped back with, "You're not getting another blanket from me." That's when the guilt tripping started. My sister and her husband both chimed in, saying she made a mistake not keeping the first one and that I should just give her another one. They even tried to argue that since she had accidentally opened the blanket, it was only fair to let her keep it. I told them, "You had your chance. I gave you a heated blanket like you wanted and you didn't appreciate it. If you want one, buy it yourself or ask someone else because I'm not doing it again." I thought that was the end of it, but of course it wasn't. A few days later, my mom called me and said she was looking for a heated blanket for my sister because, apparently, I wasn't going to buy her one. I told her, "That's right, I'm not, and can we please stop talking about it?" Now I'm sitting here wondering if I'm the bad guy. On one hand, I feel like I'm just standing my ground and not letting my sister take advantage of me again. On the other hand, maybe I'm being petty by holding this grudge. My sister keeps saying she really wants the gift she opened by mistake, but I can't help but feel like she's not actually grateful and would just change her mind again if I gave in. Am I the jerk? Your sister's actions are highly suspicious. She knew what gift you were giving your mom. You told her beforehand. She conveniently didn't read the gift tag, opened the present, and miraculously discovered the blanket. Lovely. She finally gave the blanket to your mom, so she was reluctant to even give it to her. Shameful. She tried to make you feel sorry for her because the blanket wasn't for her. Of course it wasn't. She's quite happy taking your mom's new blanket when she visits. She's doubling down on the guilt, trying to get you to buy her a new one. Your sister is absolutely delulu. Slam your door over and over? Kiss your door goodbye. I, 40 female, have 3 kids. Maggie, who's 14, Levi, who's 12, and Charlie, who's 10. Not their real names. Levi and Charlie share a bedroom, and Maggie has her own room as the oldest and also the only girl. Maggie's a great kid. She does her homework, helps with chores without too much complaining, doesn't bug her little brothers too much. The issue is that she will not stop slamming her bedroom door. When she gets up to use the bathroom at night, she slams her bedroom door on her way out and back in. When she gets up in the morning or goes to bed at night, she slams it. Pretty much any time she enters or exits her room, the door gets slammed. And it's only her door, none of the other doors in the house. It shakes the walls and frequently wakes up everyone else in the house. Her brother's room shares a wall with hers, and our bedroom is directly above theirs. We've talked to her about it and asked her very politely to please be more mindful about it because it's disturbing the rest of us, but it's in one ear and out the other. We tried being more forceful about it, saying that if she continues to slam her door, there will start to be consequences. Still, nothing changes. It all came to a head the other night when she got up to use the bathroom, and all four of us were woken up by the slamming. I have to be up at 5 a.m. for work, and I've had enough of the broken sleep and came downstairs and knocked on her door. She opened it and said, "What?" with such attitude it took a lot of self-control not to start yelling. I told her as calmly as I could that if she slammed that door one more time, she was going to come home and find it gone. She proceeded to yell at me to leave her alone and then slammed it 5 times as hard as she could. Well, the next day, Friday, she went to school and my husband and I both had the day off, so we took the door off the frame and installed a curtain rod with a nice heavy curtain over the door instead. She came home and freaked out. She said we're being emotionally mistreating and taking away her right to privacy. She sulked all weekend and won't even talk to us now. My mother says I'm the jerk because I overreacted, but she doesn't have to deal with the house shaking. I want to add that we completely respect each other's privacy in our house, which is why we hung up a heavy curtain and made sure that we couldn't see through it or around it. We even put little Velcro pieces on the wall and curtain sides so that it stays in place. She still has her physical privacy, which she is absolutely entitled to, but can't slam a piece of fabric. We also have never and still don't ever just go into her room unannounced, and we still knock on the wall to ask permission to enter. We've told her we'll happily put her door back on once she agrees to respect the no slamming rule. So, am I the jerk? Edit to add. 1. The curtain is an industrial type that blocks sound and light. 2. The curtain is only meant to be a temporary measure. As soon as she agrees to stop slamming and be respectful of the shared space, we'll put it right back on. And 3. The door isn't broken or malfunctioning in any way, and there is no draft causing it to swing shut. Not the jerk. Interrupting everyone's sleep is unacceptable. You gave her plenty of opportunities to change the door slamming behavior, and she didn't do it. Let her sulk it out for a set amount of time. Let her know this amount, 1 week, 3 days, whatever you choose. Then return the door conditionally for a trial. If she can refrain from slamming it, she can keep it. If not, the door gets taken off again for even more time. Rinse and repeat until she no longer slams the door. The slamming it a few times in a row was the point where the door had to go. OP's daughter might not have meant to wake others, but at that point, it was teenage spite. My nephew lost his door for slamming it, and when he got it back, he requested padding to help cushion the door. He actually lost the door when he slammed it shut, and it slammed on his little brother's foot during an argument. I think that made him feel worse than the actual grounding. Not the jerk. That's what I call a checkmate. You're teaching your kid a valuable lesson. Actions have consequences, and she's even able to reverse this decision. If she agrees to not slam, which for some reason she won't agree to it. P.S. The curtain was a great touch. Crazy sister said I should sell my car and give her the money. I'm 48 years old, married, but child-free by choice. It's something my wife and I agreed on early in our relationship. We both have pretty good jobs and we're able to afford many expensive items and activities. I attribute this to our jobs, obviously, but also the fact that we're child-free and we live in a 1-bedroom apartment. I own a manufacturing plant that was given to me from my father. On that property, I store 4 classic cars that I have bought and restored. I've always been a car guy. I plan to buy another car in the next year too. I have one sister who's younger than me and never made the best decisions in life. She has a boyfriend who she lives with after getting divorced twice. She's also in her early 40s. She has 2 kids who already seem smarter than their mom. She makes an okay living, but she's the breadwinner. Her boyfriend that she lives with spends most of his time smoking and playing Xbox. He's always looking for a new job or blaming the capitalist system for him not having a job. Her daughter, who's 10, is a very good singer. I don't have an ear for talent much, but to me, she's very good. My sister has wanted to enroll her in lessons with a private coach, but she can't afford it. She's asked me to help her out since she's embarrassed to ask our parents. She also does not speak to the father of her daughter. I declined politely until she made a comment about my money and cars. Just another, must be nice, comment that I'm all too sick of hearing. Here's where I made my jerk comment. I said, maybe if your boyfriend can put down that crap that he's on for all of 10 minutes, he can help you out. And I have 5 cars. I'll buy another 5 before I give you a dime. I said her daughter isn't my responsibility. She's got a mother and a father, and if they can't figure it out, it doesn't fall on my shoulders. My sister called my wife and told her how mean I was to her. My wife now wants us to give the money, but I don't want to. Sure, we can afford it, but I'm not my sister's welfare. Last bit. I'm sure some of you will make a comment about how I refer to her daughter or my niece. They live in another state and have for the entirety of her life. I don't see my sister or her kids much at all. I don't really know her kids too well. I send them birthday and Christmas gifts, but I'm not close with them. Edit. This is coming up a lot in the comments. My sister could have had a stake in the business, but she didn't want to work there. I've worked for my dad all my life and learned the business. She never did. She knew she wouldn't be getting anything without it, and she was okay with that. Edit. I have given financial support to her before. Some people here are missing this piece. I declined politely until she made a comment about my money and cars. Just another must be nice comment that I'm all too sick of hearing. So it's been years of making snide and passive-aggressive comments by the sister. The same sister that's too ashamed or too chicken, or just maybe has depleted the parents' money train because of her constant begging. Maybe she's made too many snippy comments to the parents too, and they finally had enough. Now, if she'd been nicer all these years, OP probably wouldn't hesitate to help out. OP took on the family business. OP has made it a continued success. OP made personal choices that resulted in having a comfortable life. Nobody's obligated to help raise or fund their siblings' kids. Sister seems to have a habit of making not-so-smart life choices. That's not OP's problem. Could OP have been nicer, less insulting? Sure. But even the most patient people finally have enough, and that's what this sounds like. Not the jerk. You can spend your money any way you want to, but man, the entire attitude in this post rubs me the wrong way. I'm going to refrain from judgment because I feel like there's a lot missing here. Also, seeing in the comments that your parents gave you the factory and your sister nothing probably adds a different family dynamic that you didn't discuss here. You were honest about your perspective, and it sounds like your sister needs to get in touch with honesty and reality about herself and others. If she's been expecting other people to take greater care of herself and her kids than she does, that's unrealistic at best. The articulation may have been frank, but it sounds like she needed it. I say, not the jerk. I like that you're making digs at their choices as far as money when you were handed down your career. Capitalist system really helped you out by inheriting daddy's business, huh? Everyone sucks here, to be honest. OP. I worked for that business. He would have sold it if I didn't work hard for it. So, you're saying that if you didn't work there as a nepotism hire, your father would have sold the company to someone who would have had to pay for it with money instead of being given it for free like you were? Man, I wish my dad could have given me a job and a company to manage. You sound exactly like the same kind of person his sister is. Are you seriously discrediting the years of work OP put into a company, which were helpful enough that their parent decided it was better to let OP take over the company rather than selling it out? What is wrong with you? I don't think that he owes his sister money. OP is insanely privileged though. Most people aren't given a nepotism hire and a free company by their parents. OP might have worked hard, but there are almost certainly people who were working at that place and working just as hard who weren't gifted the keys to the place. I'm going with you're the jerk. I'd like to clarify that this is because of your response to your sister, not whether or not you pay for singing lessons for your niece. You're in a position nearly nobody ends up in, and that's a massive, ludicrous advantage. You might have worked to get it, but plenty of people work harder than you and don't get that kind of opportunity. You've been handed a functioning, profitable business and have reaped the advantages of it. Your sister has not, whether that's by her choice or not. Frankly, making her wait most of her life to get the same benefits you have right now is deeply unfair. All right, let's continue. These people are bonkers. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his sister? Please let us know. I must have been missing something. I didn't see the part where OP was wrong about what he said to his sister. Bring food I'm allergic to? Get kicked out of my party. I recently hosted a party where I made it clear to everyone attending that I'm severely allergic to fish. So if you're going to bring food, don't bring fish. Well, my warning seemed to have fallen on deaf ears as one of the guests brought and cooked fish in my kitchen. When the party started, for the first 40 minutes, I wasn't aware that someone brought and was cooking fish inside of the house because I was outside the whole time. When I went inside to use the bathroom, I noticed the fish smell instantly. I immediately went to the kitchen and told the person cooking the fish to get it out of my house and reminded everyone of my food allergy. A lot of the other people there were already eating some of the fish, so now my whole house was contaminated with fish because people were touching everywhere. The guy gave me some BS excuse. "Oh, you told me a month ago about your allergy. You should have reminded people." I then told him that I sent out a text 2 days ago to everyone, reminding them, and he said he didn't get it. Yeah, sure. Anyway, at this point I was panicking because I didn't have my EpiPen in case I got a severe allergic reaction. Also, I ate some of the food that was being cooked in my kitchen. Food contamination with the fish was likely. I kicked everyone out of my party, even though it was still early in the evening, and I had invited them all over to celebrate. A lot of them traveled far, but at this point, I didn't care. Some of the guests got upset, saying I could just get rid of the fish and they all could wash their hands and I could just chill outside until the fish smell went away. I told them to buzz off and that they can all blame David for what he almost did to me. They thought I was overreacting, which I probably was because again, I was upset. I was yelling at this point. A lot of my friends said that I ruined the party because I overreacted because I didn't have to kick everyone out of the party since they did not bring the fish, and that I treated David too harshly because it was an honest mistake, and they recorded me yelling at him, which I honestly feel guilty about. Was I the jerk here? Not the jerk. You know what else would be ruining the party? You going into anaphylactic shock in front of everybody because you accidentally ate something contaminated with fish. Also, hospital visits are not cheap. Maybe get some new friends who are more considerate. The fact that your allergy is so severe that you've reminded them multiple times, 100% not the jerk. You threw a party and allowed guests the use of your kitchen. You allowed them into your home and that's how they treated you? Hey, yeah, we know this is your house, but why don't you just wait outside? I'm sorry, but you don't get to tell someone to wait outside their own party, let alone their own home. Drop all of those friends. Am I the jerk for telling my dad he and his wife need to look at themselves for the reason her son is struggling? My dad has me, I'm 16, male, and my brother, 11, male, and our mom passed 8 years ago. Dad met Chantel 6 years ago, and they got married 2 years ago. Her son is 10. My brother and I have known Chantel and her son for about 4 years now. Chantel's son, Kyle, is an only child, has no dad, no extended family, and he latched onto me fiercely when we met. It was frustrating how he had inserted himself into stuff with my brother. He'd invite himself along. He would try to hold on to me, and my dad and Chantel told me to allow it and give him a hug when I'd tell them that it made me uncomfortable and annoyed me. Eventually, I started to stop him and tell him to not do this and don't cling on to me. Dad and Chantel realized the three of us hadn't bonded the way they wanted us to, so they insisted on leaving me with both him and my brother and having me babysit them while they left the house. This was during the day and night. Dad would also set up times where I had to take them to the park. I should also bring up, my brother and I are close, like super close. We lost our mom, all 4 grandparents, and our only uncle. We have aunts, in the same space of 3 years. Losing them made us closer. I was always an affectionate big brother. My mom used to say that. And our relationship is so easy and natural that we hug, or I'll ruffle his hair, or he'll sit on me sometimes if he wants something. None of it is forced, and it just kind of happens. Kyle saw a lot of that during the forced babysitting, the forced park trips, etc. And he never got to hang all over me or be my shadow like he wanted, and I'm not affectionate with him, and it's caused him to have trouble dealing with stuff. Chantel was concerned, and so he went to therapy for that. He admitted to being jealous and that he hates my brother, but he also wants me all to himself. He's still in therapy, but he told Chantel that he's never going to be happy not being my brother. Chantel and Dad blamed it all on me. They said I had a responsibility to Kyle to be a good brother to him, and that it was my job as the oldest to look out for him and make sure I was loving him the same way I love my brother. My dad has brought it up a couple of times on his own, as well as the last time I told him that he and Chantel should look at themselves because they knew Kyle was seriously clingy with me and they sent him out with me and my brother, knowing we're close and have an affectionate relationship, and did nothing to make sure he'd be okay. He told me I should have put my own feelings aside and done what Kyle needed me to. Chantel was like, "How dare I blame them?" And she called me evil for blaming them when I have destroyed her son. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. And yes, it's your father and stepmother's fault. Kyle should have been told that the two of you are brothers. Plus, you've both suffered the same serious losses in a very short time. That means the two of you have a special bond. Kyle needs to be taught his bond with you will be different because of that, and he cannot force it. Otherwise, that will only drive you further away. And no one should ever be forced to accept affection or cleanliness from someone if it makes you uncomfortable. You have the right to pick and choose that kind of stuff. I worry about you, to be blunt. In a few years, you're going to be able to live on your own, and you're going to want to have contact with your brother. I suspect your father and Chantel will forbid your brother from coming to see you unless Kyle can go too. Perhaps if you could persuade your father and stepmother into family therapy, the perspective of a qualified professional might help. Not the jerk. Harsh truth time. He is not your brother. He's the child of the woman your dad married and nothing else to you. There's nothing wrong with that. Feelings cannot and should not be forced. Them forcing him upon you is a sure way to ensure that you will never see him as anything other than an annoyance. Am I the jerk for helping a single dad? Me and my husband took our toddler to the park the other day to enjoy the good weather. We were chilling, enjoying the equipment when I heard crying. Not usual baby crying, like full-on sobbing. Naturally, I looked around to make sure everything was okay when I saw a man with his own toddler having a mini meltdown. I asked my husband to keep an eye on our baby, and I went over to see if I could help. I started talking with the man, and he vented that his kid was being extra defiant and nothing he tried was working. He told me the mother had recently left after deciding motherhood wasn't for her, and he's been having a hard time adjusting. Over the next 30 to 45 minutes, I showed him different techniques and told him about different parent sites I read and support groups. Basically, anything I thought would help. I also gave him my Facebook page in case he wanted to reach out to vent or needed advice. After, he looked very relieved and thankful, so I went on about my day. My husband was quiet when I got back and was acting weird, so I asked what was wrong. He said I abandoned my family for a stranger on our day out. He works a lot, so it's rare all three of us get to be out together. He then told me I was weird for giving the man my Facebook. I told my husband I did as soon as I rejoined him. I didn't think much of it since I didn't really feel comfy giving out my phone number, and I don't use many social sites. I tried telling him I was just trying to be helpful and hoping someone would help him if he was in that situation. But the way he's acting now, I feel like I should have minded my own business. Am I the jerk? Edit. Sorry for not getting back, but I wanted to address some common questions. 1. We were at the park about 3-ish hours total. We were there for a bit. I saw the guy, went to chat, came back to play for another 90 minutes. 2. The guy knew I was with my family. I pointed them out when I walked over. 3. My husband did come over to introduce himself when I waved him to. I expected him to sit and chat, but he didn't. Just said a few pleasantries and left again until he came back to give me our baby so that he could go use the restroom. I didn't think much of it since he's kind of awkward and doesn't know how to handle emotional people, especially strangers. 4. Our family outings are rare, yes, but we still have lots of family time at home. He has 2 days off a week, so actually going out is more dependent on his energy and mood, not his job. 5. I didn't approach the man because I heard a baby crying and wanted to be a hero. I heard him breaking down and simply asked if he needed help. If he would have said no, I would have walked away, but he accepted and we chatted. I'd do the same for a woman as well. Teen parent, grandmother, etc. Not the jerk. You saw a human being struggling and you did a kind thing in helping him and giving him some advice. You didn't give him your phone number and you still had most of the day with your husband. While I understand he was disappointed, you did nothing wrong. The husband didn't do anything wrong either. They rarely have opportunities to do family outings, but OP spent half the outing with another family, excluding him and their kid. Very reasonable to be upset about this, even if OP was helping out a friend rather than a stranger. Husband was probably really looking forward to this outing and felt like he was his wife's lowest priority. It wasn't an emergency. OP did a kind thing. Was it really necessary to spend 45 minutes rather than 10 and a referral to a parent meetup group? Maybe she got caught up in the moment. It doesn't make her a jerk, but her husband has a good reason to be upset, and he isn't one either. No jerks here. Not the jerk. If the guy didn't want your help, he would have told you so, not spoken to you for 30 to 45 minutes. Is your husband typically jealous? These comments make me laugh. Would anyone be happy for their partner to leave them and go talk to someone else for an hour? Not the jerk. Thank you for stepping up for someone in need. Hopefully your husband can let this go and understand that we all need to be kind, even if it disrupts our plans for a little bit. You're the jerk. Why do I have a strong feeling that if the husband was the one who went off to spend 30 minutes with a single mom and OP was the upset wife, you all would be telling her how right she is and how her husband was in the wrong. Just Reddit being Reddit. Edit. Since some of you are assuming I'm a man, I'll clear that up for you. I'm a mother of 3 and I've been happily married for almost 20 years. But I would never ditch my husband during an outing to go talk to some stranger that I don't even know, especially a man. That's called giving the wrong impression, so don't be surprised when he starts sending you pics on Facebook that you didn't ask for. I know the younger generation is really messed up, thanks TikTok, but here's a life hack for you. Before you go doing something that could be taken as disrespectful to your husband, stop and ask yourself, is this how a queen would treat her king? And if the answer is no, you shouldn't be doing it. I've treated my hubby like a king for 19 years, and he in return has treated me like his queen. I don't understand why so many in the young generation want to disrespect your man like this. Then you're surprised when he ends up leaving you. Fortunately, I've raised strong, responsible, yet loving sons who would never let this kind of disrespect fly in their marriage. I really hope you get things figured out. Am I the jerk for turning off my location after my mom complained to my dad about where I was? Before I start, I need to tell you about my living situation. My parents divorced when I was about 3 to 4. The schedule they made was, on Mondays and Tuesdays, I'm with my dad. Wednesdays and Thursdays, I'm with my mom. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they alternate weekly. My mom uses find friends for everyone in the family. This happened when it was my dad's weekend. My grandma also lives with us. This happened yesterday. My dad had went out of town for a meeting. Me, 18, male, decided to go and hang out with my friends. I told my grandma where I was going, she agreed, and I left. I picked them up and decided to go and walk behind some trails that are behind our school. This was at about 9 p.m. We were hungry, so we stopped to get food before we went. Fast forward to eating in the school parking lot, about 9:30. My mom calls and asks why I'm at the school. I tell her my friends and I are walking on a trail. She then asks if my dad knows that I'm there. I told her my grandma did. She proceeds to say I shouldn't be there, and if dad knew where I was, would he approve? She said this in a condescending tone. I told her, annoyed, it wasn't her weekend to worry about me. She told me if I got arrested that they would call her and hung up. I let it go, not wanting her attitude to ruin the night. About 20 minutes later, while on the trail, my dad texts me asking where I was. I told him at the school and who I was with. This upset me because this means my mom told my dad where I was. After I told him grandma knew, he brushed it off, saying next time to tell him where I'm going. We finished walking the trails and I dropped my friends off and went home, but I was not happy with my mom. I wake up the next morning and decided to stop sharing my location with her. She called me 2 hours later, demanding to know why I turned off my location. I told her since she can't control being a helicopter mom, my location will stay off when I'm at dad's. She didn't like this response and proceeded to yell at me. I told her I will not be talked to like a child, let alone be treated like one, and I hung up. When I told my dad, he said she got goofy last night about it. I was fine with her having my location before, but now I really don't want her to if all she's gonna do is stalk me. I feel like it's fair if I turn it on for her days. Am I wrong about this? Info. Why is an 18-year-old subject to any parental custody sharing or location tracking? Not the jerk. You're an adult and you were just hanging out with friends at a relatively early time. 9:30 at night is early to me. This is the weekend that your dad has you, not your mom, so she really doesn't need to know where you are at that moment. Additionally, you asked your grandmother for permission to go out and she said yes. I feel like as a legal adult, your custody agreement needs to be changed or something. I don't know the laws in your area. Info. I'm confused. If you're an adult, the parenting plan is irrelevant, expired, and whether you allow either parent to see your location is your decision. Just turn it off. She misused it, and there are consequences. Absolutely not the jerk. You're 18. Your mom should not be hovering over you like that. I don't think I'd turn my location back on, even on the days you're with her. Why on earth do people think that because you're 18, you're an adult? Age does not make you an adult. It only defines whether you are a minor or are at the age of majority. At 18, you have the right to drive, sign contracts, own property, vote, get married, and go into the military. You're an adult when you can fully support yourself, pay all of your own bills without help from anyone, including a cell phone, have a good job, and are a contributing member of society. This is the definition of an adult. As long as someone pays your way, you are not an adult. You're the jerk. While under her roof or at your father's, she or he owns the air you breathe. You do not pay the cell phone bill. You are by no means an adult when you are 18. You're not fully cooked. At best, you're medium rare. Hanging out on school property at 9:30 p.m., calling you medium rare is a stretch. You can be cited for trespassing if you are caught. Seriously stupid. Want to go to a top university or get a good job? Not with a misdemeanor on your record. Yes, they do criminal background checks. You'd better turn that feature back on before you find yourself without a phone and possibly grounded. Your mom is not being a helicopter parent, she is being a parent. Get over your entitled self. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his mom? Please let us know. Karen demands my upgraded seats for free. She really ends up regretting it. This happened a few years ago, before lockdown, when flying overseas from the US to Europe. My girlfriend and I were taking a trip to visit a few places in Europe for a vacation. This was her first time overseas and the first time she had ever flown on a long-haul flight of more than 3 or 4 hours. In the lead up to the trip, we decided to upgrade our seats from economy to whatever the premium economy variant was for the airline. Seeing as this was my girlfriend's first time on a long flight, I figured it was worth the upgrade for the extra room and perks. In total, we paid around $150 total for both of us to upgrade. We boarded the flight and we got settled in our seats, which were in the last row of the premium economy section on the right side of the plane. There was no noticeable division or indicators between sections other than a small plaque above our row said premium economy or whatever. My girlfriend took the window seat and I sat in the aisle. Entitled mom and her son, who was around 9 to 10 years old, then board and are seated several rows behind us, but in the middle row of the aircraft, 2-4-2 seating. Her son has his nose buried in his switch, as you'd expect a kid of his age to do. They barely get to their seats when entitled mom comes up to our row and stares at us with no greeting. She's standing in the aisle as other passengers are trying to get around her to get to their seats. Entitled mom: "Can you swap seats with my son and I? He likes having a window seat and we don't have one." My girlfriend and I look back at where her son is sitting and then at each other. I try to politely decline her request. Me: "Unfortunately, no ma'am. We paid to upgrade to these seats, so we'd like to keep our assigned seats for this flight." Entitled mom keeps staring at us for a couple seconds. More people are awkwardly trying to shuffle around her as she stands there. Entitled mom: "My son is not a great flyer. He does better when he can sit next to the window." Me: "Sorry, but like I said, we paid more money to sit here in premium economy. We're in the last row, so perhaps there's someone else in the rows behind us who would be willing to swap seats." At this point, a flight attendant noticed that entitled mom is holding up the boarding line and comes over to tell entitled mom to take her seat. She goes back to her row, and my girlfriend and I think that this is the end of that exchange and go back to getting settled. After boarding completes, entitled mom and her son immediately stand up and walk to our row, standing right in front of us with all of their stuff in hand. The kid still has his face buried in a switch. Entitled mom: "Can we swap seats now?" Me: "Ma'am, I already said that we aren't willing to swap seats. As I've said, we paid more so that we can sit here, so we'd like to keep these seats." Awkward infinite pause. Karen: "That's really just selfish of you. My son isn't the best flyer and likes to have a window to look out of. It's not that big of a deal for you to take our seats so he can have a window." At this point, I should mention this was an overnight flight, so there isn't going to be anything to look at except darkness for a majority of the flight. Me: "I'm not going to argue with you, ma'am. I don't think it's selfish to want to sit in the seats I paid for. I'm sorry you don't have a window seat for your son, but that doesn't mean you're entitled to our seats that we paid an upgrade fee for." Entitled mom continues to stand there silently for a few seconds, as if we'd give in eventually and move if she didn't leave. "I'm guessing you don't have kids if you're acting like this." Me: "Ma'am, I don't know what to say to you at this point. If it was that big of a deal for your son to get a window seat, then you should have done so in advance. Did you try asking anyone else if they were willing to swap seats? Well, no one else back there is traveling together, so they aren't going to want to swap. I turn around and see an older couple in the row behind us, a pair of coworkers in another row that were watching a video on one of their phones while laughing, and a middle-aged woman sitting alone in the aisle seat with the window vacant. Entitled mom then starts to open up the overhead bins to start putting her stuff in there. Me, ma'am, we are not swapping seats with you. I think you're just trying to guilt us into giving up our seats so you can sit in premium economy. If a window seat was really that important, you would have moved on and asked other people behind us once we told you we weren't willing to move. You just want us to give you a free upgrade. Entitled mom becomes furious at this point and continues to call us selfish and how what I said wasn't true. She then starts to bend over and grab my stuff like she's going to evict us from the row. Me, lady, please don't touch any of my stuff and leave us alone. Thankfully, the flight attendant comes up to ask what the problem is. Entitled mom tries to go on a rant that we were denying her kid a window seat and were being selfish and rude to her and her son. After she was done ranting, I explained the actual situation to the flight attendant. Flight attendant, ma'am, they aren't obligated to swap seats with you. They said no, you need to take your seats now. Please go back to your row. Flight attendant escorted them back to their seats as entitled mom huffed and puffed. She then spent the rest of the flight glaring at us from the aisle seat. When the plane finally landed, she rushed to the front of the aircraft ahead of everyone and gave me a solid bump as she passed by me with her bag. Definitely wasn't an accident. Her kid was fine for the whole flight too. Anytime we saw him, he was either asleep or was heads down playing his Switch. I think the only way to deal with people like that is to not argue. They ask for something, just say no. Don't give a reason. Logic won't work with idiots anyway. If they start on about how their kid needs this or that, I just say, this may come as a shock to you, but I don't give a hoot about your kid. Pregnant woman demands my seat on the bus. Sorry, Karen, not gonna happen. I, female, was coming back home from college using the public transportation as I often do. I live in Argentina. In my stop, there were plenty of seats available. I pick one in the back of the bus near the door. A few stops after, a pregnant woman got in. She ignored the first seats, which are the priority seats, and came up to me and asked if I could give her my seat. At the time, the bus was crowded enough to not have any seats available. I told her no because I was tired and I wanted to sit down. She mumbled that I was a jerk and said she's 8 months pregnant. I told her I don't care about that and that the priority seats are in the front of the bus. Somebody else gave her a seat in the background, but still, it made me feel kind of like a jerk. I think I'm entitled to the seat if I got here before, but I also don't know if the people in the priority seats were people who really needed it, so that woman could have just asked them to give her a seat. Edit. Every single seat was taken. I told her to go get one of those seats since people who don't need them take them anyway when the bus is crowded. Also, lots of people don't want to sit in front and would ask for a seat in the back near the door, even though they're entitled to the priority seats. I find it kind of disappointing that an 8-month pregnant woman had to ask for a seat. So here's the thing. You don't have to give up a seat for a heavily pregnant person. It's the kind, considerate, understanding, and sympathetic thing to do, and if you don't do it, then you are exactly what you think you are. You're the jerk. But then again, I give pregnant people a seat. It is disappointing what the world is coming to. Pregnant women act entitled now because of their choice? That's where we are? What has happened to common courtesy and decency? For you guys throwing shade at the pregnant lady, may this never happen to your wife. For the OP, it doesn't take a lot to be decent to others. What was a minor inconvenience to you was not only a lot more for a woman that far along in pregnancy, but also potentially dangerous. If your comfort was that important, I do hope you had some then. This old man will stand without being asked, because my mama didn't raise me to do any different than that. Let's remind the gentle readers of this subreddit that this is Am I the Jerk, not Do I Have the Right? So yes, you had every right to refuse that seat to the pregnant woman, but it was very much a jerk thing to do. Pregnant women can and do suffer from a variety of invisible medical conditions. Your tiredness is no comparison. You're the jerk. Not the jerk. Laughing out loud at all you idiots who are trying to call out OP. If OP had written this story from the perspective of a scared little twisted creep playing his Nintendo on the bus, like most of you are, dang, you would all be cheering him on. But because he actually stood his ground, or in this case, sat his seat, and refuse to give in to this pregnant woman's demands, you're all insulting him. Talk about a double standard. I'm glad he didn't give up his seat, and neither would I. Just because you got knocked up does not mean I need to give you my bus seat when I was here first. Go find some loser who has no self-respect and bows down to those who get knocked up. And you wonder why Karens target the little creep watching anime on his Nintendo Switch. Karens do that because they can sense your weakness and would rather steal your seat than someone like OP who won't tolerate that BS. I walk out of the kitchen and go play video games whenever my wife tries to help me prepare food. I love my wife very much. She is smart and capable and leaves me on the dust in most categories. But she cannot cook at all. She burned water once. She was boiling water for rice and it had oil in it. She got distracted and the water boiled off. Then the oil caught fire. Then she threw water on it and nearly burned down her parents' house. She can follow instructions on microwave food. She can use the microwave to reheat leftovers. That's about it. Her mom and dad gave up trying to teach her. I love cooking. I enjoy making tasty meals from scratch when I have the time. One of my go-to meals is fried chicken thighs and waffles. I used my dad's waffle recipe and they came out light and crispy. Perfect. I don't always make them though because it takes time. I cheat sometimes and use premix. They are heavier and kind of floppy, not crisp. So I'm making breakfast yesterday and the kids are at the table. I have the chicken going and I'm making waffles. It's a good morning. My wife decided to help and covered the waffles in foil so they stayed warm. They did. They also steamed and got soft. So I finished making myself a waffle and served my food and left the kitchen. She can finish everything off. She does this constantly. I'll be making steaks and I'm resting them and she throws them back on the grill to keep them warm. I'll have the chicken fully cooked and tender and she'll turn up the heat and dry it out just to make sure. I am sure. She came up to me yesterday for the 50th time and asked why I always walk away when she tries to help. I explained for the 50th time that I enjoy making good food and that her help is almost universally detrimental to the meal I'm trying to make. She thinks I'm a jerk for caring so much about how food feels and tastes. I think she can do whatever she wants on the days that it's her turn to cook. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. How many times should you have to explain that food is meant to be a certain way? I'm not a food shop, but I think she would drive me crazy. I would go insane. I cook for my family. My significant other and his mom like well-done steaks. I love mine medium rare. I've gotten a few good methods for getting steaks cooked enough in the oven, then searing them on the grill. My significant other and his mom trust me enough. They don't touch anything because they know their well-done steaks come out as jerky. And if they upset me, I'll just medium rare the whole batch. Too many hands in the kitchen ends up ticking off the chef. Not the jerk. And let's be clear, she absolutely is not trying to help. She's just interfering. If she actually legitimately wanted to be of help, then she would come into the kitchen when you're cooking and say, "How can I help?" and listen to your responses and follow through. But she doesn't want to be helpful. She wants to control some aspect of what you're doing. So she interferes with your process every single time, even if it literally means making the food significantly less tasty. And then she defends herself with the ridiculous argument that you shouldn't care how food tastes, which is about as illogical as it gets. You're not the jerk, and you have addressed this about as kindly and thoughtfully as possible, because a lot of us would have gotten downright rude by now at what is best her constant disruption and could arguably be deemed conscious sabotage on her part of your kitchen efforts. Gently, I would suggest that your wife needs therapy to figure out why she can't just ask you how she can be helpful, but rather needs to actively interfere anytime you try to cook. Is she jealous that you're a better cook? Does she just have control issues in general? Because something is going on here, and in all of it, you are not the jerk. Am I the jerk for publicly scolding my boyfriend's picky eating? Context. I'm 27, female. My boyfriend, Chris, who's 29, is the absolute pickiest eater I've ever met. No, he doesn't have food allergies. No, he has no intolerances. He's just picky. I don't blame him for that. His mom didn't know how to cook a whole lot, so Chris's palate adjusted to it. Since we've been together though, we've worked on cooking dinners with one another to try and find things with ingredients he'll enjoy that may be outside his comfort zone. Anyway, last night, my parents said that they would love to go to dinner with Chris and I. My parents live in another part of the state and I don't see them often, so I ran it by Chris and we made plans. The restaurant was a new seafood place that opened close to where we live. Since I knew how picky Chris can be, I asked him to look over the menu before we went so we could make sure there would be something that he'd eat. He told me he looked it over and would have the salmon. Fast forward to this evening when we all sat down to eat and he made a disgusted face looking at the menu. I asked what was wrong and he told me there's nothing he'd eat. My parents looked a bit hurt, so I pulled Chris aside and said that I couldn't believe he'd do this, that if he wouldn't like the food, he had all of yesterday and most of today to pick a different restaurant. I then commented that I was just annoyed by his picky eating because now it's hurting my parents, and left the restaurant with him after apologizing to my parents. He told me that he was in shock that I didn't defend him and that I should have known he would be unhappy and was being a total jerk for publicly humiliating what he can't control. Am I the jerk? Quick edit about the salmon. I had asked him about that, and I guess the problem is he read the menu again and saw how it was prepared, and he didn't care for the seasoning that was going to be on the salmon. Edit. Oh geez, this started blowing up far more than I expected. I'm sorry I'm not able to respond to all of your comments, but I have read them and I really appreciate your support. I will be spending some quality time with my parents to see a movie the three of us enjoy, and Chris will not be attending. Update. A lot of these comments have really opened my eyes, and I'm not sure that this is someone I would be okay to spend my life with. Unfortunately, at this moment in time, Chris and I are living together and we split bills 50-50 with both our names on the lease. Most likely, when the lease is up, I'll be living by myself though and reevaluating my relationship. My parents and I also had a wonderful time with the movie last night, did some catching up, and guess what? We're going out for seafood tonight because we all want to. Not the jerk, because you did everything to accommodate him, but he changed his mind. But why did you leave the restaurant? I'd have finished the meal and made him wait. Surely there were some side dishes or appetizers he could have snacked on. Not the jerk. It's not about him being a picky eater. It's about him using his eating habits to be the center of attention and making other people feel inferior for hurting him by not meeting his needs. Not the jerk. Chris is a big boy. He can use big boy words. You told him to check the menu. He said he found something to eat. You have to assume that the adult is responsible for their own choices and will speak up if something is wrong. You shouldn't have to read his mind that the salmon will be fine means I'm going to make a scene at a seafood restaurant and blame you for not saving me from the evil fishes. He's the one with a dietary restriction. He has to speak up for himself because no one is going to do it for him. Why is he making you responsible for food availability when he won't do the absolute minimum for himself? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. Man, children, not even once. Am I the jerk for having a better wedding than my sister-in-law? I'm 29, female, from a middle-class family, and I have an older brother who's 35. Let's call him Adrian. He's a self-taught software engineer and makes pretty good money. A little over 1 year ago, he married his girlfriend, 28, female, of 6 years. Let's call her Heather. She's not a bad person, but I think she's a little bit spoiled. She's the type that loves to brag about all the expensive stuff her husband bought her, and their wedding was pretty extravagant. She still loves to talk about how it was the most amazing wedding she's ever been to. My brother is kind of wrapped around her finger, but it never really mattered until now. I met my fiance, 36 male, about 4 years ago. It was a business event, and he owns a decently sized and very successful company. So saying that, he's extremely wealthy. Since he grew up less than, he loves to spend his money on things him and his family could only dream about before. One of those things is, of course, our wedding. He wants to go all out and hire a somewhat well-known wedding planner to arrange everything. Honestly, I'm pretty excited. I never dreamed of such a luxurious wedding, but now that it's happening, it feels like I'm living some wild dream I never even dared to, like textbook fairy tale. Recently, I was at a family gathering and was hanging out in the living room with my mom and Heather doing girl talk. My mom started asking me how the planning was going, and when I told her about everything we were doing, I could see Heather go pale and then extremely red in the face. She was quiet for the rest of the night. The next day, Adrian called me up and said that Heather was extremely upset and felt like I was trying to one-up her wedding. She said I was trying to upstage her because I never expressed desire for a fancy wedding before. He asked me if we could tone it down so it doesn't exceed the budget they had for their own wedding. I laughed because, honestly, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and then I naturally said no. He sounded upset and hung up. A few hours later, Heather calls and she starts yelling at me, repeating mostly the same stuff, saying she knew I was always jealous of her and I'm only with my fiance because he's rich and I want to rub it in her face. That made me snap, and I said, if you're that obsessed with money, maybe you should have married someone else instead of my brother. If anyone's jealous of someone, it's you. She screamed at me and started crying before hanging up. Now Adrian is angry and calling me a jerk for insinuating she shouldn't have married him, and my parents think I was too harsh on her when I know she's always been materialistic and are asking me to lower our wedding budget to appease her. I don't want to. My fiance definitely doesn't want to, but I don't know if that makes me a jerk or not. Not the jerk, and you should increase the budget for your wedding every time she complains about it. Not the jerk. First, it's you and your fiance's wedding. Second, if you give in now, there will be no end to her demands. Your dress is more elegant than hers? Why? You can't go to Paris for honeymoon. She was only in California. You shouldn't buy a 4-bathroom house. There are only 3 in her house. You have to organize your birthday party at Wendy's or McDonald's. Your kid cannot attend a better school than hers. It's unfair, and so on. If you had been rubbing it in their faces, gloating, etc., I'd say everyone sucks here. But you didn't. Your mom asked and you answered. And who cares if you never wanted a fancy wedding? Your fiance does. You probably didn't have to add that jab at the end. It definitely didn't help. But you were essentially, or just actually, being harassed. Not the jerk. You're the jerk. When Heather enjoys luxuries, she's a little bit spoiled. She's the type that loves to brag about all the expensive stuff her husband bought her. When your fiance buys nice things for his family, he grew up less than. He loves to spend his money on nice things for him and his family that they could only dream about before. Pot, meet kettle, and stop being competitive with Heather. OP. I didn't say that about her as an insult though. It's just how she is. She likes to brag about things, and that's not really a problem with me. It's just this situation. Am I the jerk for announcing my pregnancy at my sister's wedding? I'm 32 and my sister is 28, and we've always been incredibly close. Point in case, she was the first person I told that I was pregnant, besides my husband of course. I told her essentially a week after I got a positive pregnancy test, which was about 3 months before her wedding. I told her that I was going to tell our parents and my husband's parents around the 10-week mark, but she told me that I should hold off until her wedding in September. I'd be like 4 months along at that point, so I wouldn't be showing really, and she thought it would be so special for her to be able to make an announcement about a special guest at her wedding, and it be her first niece or nephew, and my parents' first grandbaby. I agreed because it seemed like it meant a lot to her, and again, we were super close, and I was happy to do that for her. Turns out, the first trimester was awful with morning sickness and exhaustion. I would have preferred to be able to talk about it with my mom, but I was willing to bear it for my sister's wedding. Well, the wedding came along, and about halfway through the night, I asked her when the announcement was happening. She told me that she had changed her mind and that her wedding didn't seem like a good time or place to announce my pregnancy. I was obviously super upset since I went through a really awful first trimester with only my sister and husband to lean on. I decided I wasn't going to put the announcement on hold any longer just for her. So my husband and I pulled my parents aside and quietly told them to keep it private for the evening. They were thrilled, lots of hugs, a few tears, but a very touching and private moment. Literally, no one else found out until I announced it on Facebook a week later. My sister found out around the same time as my Facebook post when my dad mentioned how we told him about it, and she texted me and called me a jerk who made her wedding about myself, and she hasn't spoken to me since. I've messaged her and apologized probably a dozen times since then, but she refuses to talk to me, and now she refuses to come see her little nephew, who's almost a month old at this point. My parents and partner think I did nothing wrong since she went back on her word, and that I should just wait it out and she'll come around. I'm obviously unsure, as clearly this has made her so upset with me and we were so close before. Am I the jerk? Edit. I've seen a lot of comments saying that I was trying to be petty, mean, vindictive, spiteful, hurt my sister, etc. And I just wanted to address that really quickly. If I had been any of those things, I would have made sure she found out that I had done it, you know? She just happened to find out a week later because my dad let it slip. I just desperately wanted to tell my mom, and after waiting over 2 months for my sister, it really felt like I couldn't wait another moment at the whims of someone who wasn't even involved in the pregnancy. I understand now though that I definitely should not have waited to tell my mom about the pregnancy. Hindsight is 20/20 and all that. Not the jerk. I was all set to say you don't announce that at a wedding thinking you grabbed a mic and told the whole wedding. You didn't. You told your parents, just them. And it clearly didn't create a fuss at the wedding because your sister didn't even know until a week later when your parents told her. You know what happened here, right? Your sister didn't want you to steal any of her wedding thunder leading up to the wedding. She saw this as her time, and the focus was supposed to be on her upcoming life event, not yours. That's why she told you not to tell anyone at all, and then she'd announce it at the wedding. I don't think she ever planned to announce it. It was just a way to keep you from telling anyone so she could be the center of attention for months. Man, people really take the whole wedding day is only about the bride thing to a whole new level. Only the grandparents found out about the pregnancy. It didn't eclipse the wedding day at all. Not the jerk. Not the jerk because you told them discreetly after your sister played an obvious trick on you. Clearly, it didn't even make an impact on the wedding because it took her being told it happened to even be aware of it. I don't think she even intended to make the announcement. She just didn't want attention taken away from her while she planned her wedding, where she did a really nasty rug pull. She essentially denied you of much needed support during a very touchy time, so her special day remained front and center. Softest you're the jerk possible, and only because you did tell your parents at your sister's wedding, partially as a forget you to your sister. You could have waited until the next morning. Those 12 hours were not that important. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that she can't expect us to drop everything for her? I have a friend, Victoria, 30 female, who I love dearly, but she has a quirk that I cannot stand. Victoria is notoriously indecisive. Sometimes it can be avoided, others not so much. The last big point of contention was 5 years ago when she got married. People took off work, booked flights, etc., all for her to change her mind just months before the wedding. Both times, there was no emergency or reason to change the date. She just found a better venue, and it was still early enough to get deposits back on the original, so she did it. Of course, people were upset, and once again, a lot of people couldn't come to the new date. A few of us tried to tell her to manage her expectations. Victoria just kept saying it was her special day, so she could do it how she wanted it. And what's worse is, 2 friends in our group supported this behavior. We've had some minor issues where we'll all start planning group trips, only for her to back out or want to change everything. We never lose money, but it's still annoying. And still, we resolve this by basically planning everything and telling her where to show up. Cut to the next time that's not possible. This year. Victoria is pregnant with her first baby. She helped plan the shower and pick the venue, a friend's house, date, etc. This time, we triple-checked that this is what she wanted. She said yes. The shower is supposed to be in 2 weeks. Then, she changed her mind. She wanted to change the venue and the date. Once again, several people can't come, and this time, I'm included. My husband and I have an anniversary trip planned, non-refundable tickets and resort accommodations. We're also going to be somewhere that doesn't allow technology. Victoria asked me to reschedule, and I said I can't. I'm sorry, but I'll send a gift. She got really upset and said she wanted me there. I sympathized, but said I had this trip planned for over a year. She then mentioned how many other people can't come. I pointed out maybe it's a sign to keep the shower on the same date, same venue, etc., especially as our friend is still willing to host. Victoria tried to pull the same old, "It's my special day, you only get one baby shower," etc. I got fed up and told her that she is well within her rights to change the date, but that it's inconsiderate to constantly do this last minute. I pointed out while she's free to do what she wants, she has to stop getting mad at others for having lives and not dropping everything for her. Victoria began to cry and hung up. Our friend group is divided. Some think I should have just let her be upset, she'd get over it in time, that it wasn't the place to bring up my issue with her indecisive nature. Others have told me that I did the right thing. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You should have told her this a long time ago. Not the jerk. I'm sorry I'm unavailable to acquiesce to your last-minute scheduling decisions. But my petty side wants to tell her you can make it only to change your mind last minute because you found a better venue for that day. Some of these stories really remind me how overrated having friends is. Karen's sister stole my iPad. She ends up really regretting it. I'm 17, female, and my sister, who's 15, has the habit of taking things from my bedroom and keeping them or losing them. My father has talked to her, grounded her, made her pay them back for it, but she just doesn't listen. My mom always takes her side and makes excuses for her. My dad had enough, so he bought me a small safe, against my mom's wishes, and I keep some jewelry, makeup, my diary, and gifts from my boyfriend, who's 19, Caleb. Caleb comes from an upper-class family, and he's always buying me stuff. Most of it gets stolen by my sister, but the most precious gift I have from him is an iPad Pro he gave me for my 17th birthday on February 14th. I love to draw. It's my hobby, my form of expression and how I relax. I used to do it on my laptop, but since Cal gave me the iPad, now I can do it in my free time during classes, in the train, or the garden. I have more options now. Cal also made a custom case that he painted with a lot of things for me. When I'm out of home, I leave it in my safe because it's one of the only things I don't want to lose. And to be honest, I don't want my sister putting her hands on it. I spent 2 days at my brother's, who's 21, apartment planning my little sister's birthday party. When I came back, I went to take the iPad to sketch some ideas, but I only found the case. I thought I had left it somewhere else, but I was sure I didn't. I also never took the case because it's my favorite thing. I looked around my whole room, my dad's office, and the garden, since I'm usually there all the time. I also called Cal and asked if I left it in his house, but he said no. When my family came back, I was awfully crying in the kitchen. My dad asked what happened, and I told him I couldn't find my iPad. My mom said very lazily, "Your sister lost it on the train yesterday." I asked, "What?" And she said, "Your sister took it to school and lost it. Accidents happen. Let it go." I was livid. I said that my sister opened my safe, don't know how, and stole my tablet. My mom told me to shut up and to never call my sister a thief again. My dad got involved, and after much fighting, he said that my sister had to pay me back. My sister just said that she didn't have money and attempted to go to her room, so I told her that I'll take the money for her party and just keep it for my iPad. She came right at me and told me that I couldn't do it. My mom sided with her and demanded the money, but I said, "No, she owes me. I get to keep it," and ran to my room. My father said that I could do it and buy another one. My brother transferred the money a few hours ago, and it's sitting in Cal's account because I don't have one yet. My sister has been crying because she just lost her Sweet 16 party and says a tablet is worth much less than that. ETA, my brother is coming home in around 20 minutes to talk to my parents. I don't know why, but it might be about my sister. Cal is also on his way here to install the lock. ETA, my brother took my parents and my sister out. I'm at home with Cal right now. He already installed the lock, and we're looking to buy some safes. Update, my brother just left. Apparently, my sister has been stealing from him too when she goes to his place. She admitted to just keeping the things to herself and that sometimes she can't help it. She acts before she can think about it. She admitted that she took my iPad, but claimed that her intention wasn't hurting me. That's why she left the case. She was planning on taking it to school, bragging about it, and then returning it since it was way too expensive and for once didn't want to take the risk. But apparently she did lose it or someone took it from her bag because she swears she didn't sell it or anything. I mean, after this, it's just pointless to keep lying. She went to her room and came back with a bunch of things, some mine, some my brother's, and some that belonged to our cousins and her friends. She even had one of Caleb's rings. We don't know how she did all of this, and she refuses to give that information. She also refuses to tell me how she broke into my safe. My parents are outside talking alone, and my dad let Caleb spend the night here with me. Not the jerk. If she cared about her Sweet 16 so much, she shouldn't be stealing. OP. Maybe she didn't think it would be related to that. To be honest, this is my first time snapping, so it's new to all of us. She's coming to the age where people will be able to have her arrested for stealing. She needs to learn that she can't just take crap from you. If she doesn't have the money to replace what she's taking, her grubby little hand shouldn't be on it at all. Taking her party money is the lightest punishment she could serve for this crime. Even a used iPad is worth enough to be a larceny charge if she steals from the wrong person. Also, change the combination on your safe. And put locks on your bedroom door and a camera in your room. OP. I don't think I'll be allowed to have a camera in my room. My dad said yes to the lock though. Am I the jerk for being too close to my ex-husband? 6 years ago, I got divorced from my now ex-husband. There was no drama that led to this. We simply realized we were no longer happy or in love, so it would have been a clean break if not for the fact we had a daughter who is now 11. Neither of us wanted to lose full custody of her or miss important moments in her life. She's the most important person in both our lives, and we debated on trying to make it work just for her, but realized that would only lead to all three of us becoming miserable. So we entered an arrangement that many would view as unconventional. When we sold our house, we used the money to buy two semi-attached houses that were joined and had a door installed between them. The construction company tried to warn us against this as it would affect resale value, but neither of us had any intention to sell, so we had them go ahead with it. We also had them take down the fence between both our back gardens so our daughter would have an extra large back garden to play in. Many of you may balk at the door, but there is an agreement. It's strictly for our daughter's use, and neither of us can use it barring any emergencies, say a fire, a medical emergency, or something being wrong with our daughter. She also has 2 bedrooms, one in each house, and every day she can pick where she wants to have breakfast, dinner, and sleep. I won't lie, it was awkward at first, but for her sake we made it work and even regained a lot of the friendship we had lost, though it was of course strictly platonic now. Last year, my ex-husband married his girlfriend of 3 years, a lovely woman who I'm actually friends with, and I was even a guest at their wedding, with my daughter being one of her bridesmaids. All in all, it's an arrangement everyone is content with, except for my boyfriend, who I started to date 2 years ago. He understood the arrangement entering into the relationship, and while he said it was a bit weird, he never protested and all seemed well. Things are getting more serious, and we've been discussing moving in together, and he has made it clear that he wants me to move as he doesn't want to live next door to my ex-husband. I understood, but told him that wouldn't be happening, as my daughter had to come first, and our arrangement gave her a stable upbringing. He got upset with me and asked me how he was supposed to be a father to my daughter when she already had a dad and he was literally a wall away. I won't lie, this took me by surprise, as I had no idea he wanted to be a father to her. I told him gently but firmly that he wasn't her father, that she already had one, and that even her father's wife didn't try to be a mother. Instead, she is called by her name. I told him if he wants some kind of familial title, he could be an uncle, but I wouldn't give him permission to take her father's title when he is very much involved in her life. He told me if I loved him, I'd move for him, and despite me trying to tell him I do love him, he isn't listening. Am I the jerk in this? Not the jerk. Sounds like you very clearly explained how things work in your world. Kudos for coming up with a unique parenting method that puts your daughter firmly as the most cherished outcome of your previous relationship. Your new boyfriend may not be compatible with your uniquely blended family. Bit of a red flag that he wants to appropriate the title of father. Good on you for nipping that in the bud. Well done, carry on. Without him, if he can't get the brief. OP. Even my ex-husband's wife doesn't get called mom or any variation of that. She is called by her name, and when my daughter is feeling particularly affectionate, a nickname. So yeah, I wasn't going to let him be father. Not the jerk, since you were honest with him from the beginning, and your boyfriend's "you don't love me" arguments seem to be his ego and insecurity speaking. Not gonna lie, but love the fact that you two put the love for your kid and her having some stability before your own egos and needs. Hope you have the strength and mental sanity to keep doing that, even if that would mean breaking up with your unreasonable boyfriend. Do him a favor and break up with him. He isn't going to be happy. You and your ex did this thing, and your ex is lucky he found someone who didn't have a problem with it. You may not be so lucky, but that is a chance that you're taking doing this. It's hard to move on, and most people are not going to want to pursue a relationship with this kind of arrangement. That works for you and you're happy with it, then that's good. There's no way to compromise here. You aren't budging, so break up with this guy and let him go. Not the jerk. Girl, run. Any man who isn't okay with you being close to your ex is a control freak and insecure. I always stay close to my exes, and I've never regretted it. Trust me, I've dated tons of guys, and the best relationships I've had were with secure men who didn't care what I did with my exes. Men need to realize we aren't their property. To be honest, I have hooked up with some of my exes on certain occasions just to spite a jealous boyfriend I had at the time, then made sure he found out to hurt him. Yowza. I know it sounds bad, but all my girlfriends do the same thing. You don't have to go as harsh as I do, but please don't settle for a loser control freak like most of these guys are nowadays. Demand I lower the rent? Not gonna happen. I let someone live in my house for free while he tried to get his dream job. Well, he got it a week ago and won't stop reminding me how he's taking a pay cut for this job. It's a huge room with private bath, private balcony, 2 sliding door closets, and an additional walk-in storage closet in the hallway. There's central air and heat, the fastest internet my address can get, and 2 outdoor spaces. There's a laundry room. The hardwood flooring is brand new. We agreed the rent would start after he got his new job. He told me repeatedly, "Once I get this job, I can pay rent like a normal tenant, no problem." He got the offer over a week ago for the new job. I told him this week the lease would start on March 15th and rent would be $1,350 with internet and all utilities included. And he balked at that price. I told him fine, that we could do 3 months at $1,000 and then 9 months at $1,350 with all utilities included. Nope, he's still balking at that price. His reasoning is because he has to buy a $15,000 car and it has to be a used Prius. I encouraged him to buy a cheaper car and widen the brands and models that he's considering, but he refuses because a Prius with specific options is his perfect car. I have never spent that much on a car. He acts like because I own a home, I must be rich. I'm 1 mile west of SoFi Stadium in Inglewood. My tenants in 2012 paid $1,250 a month, so I have only increased the rent by $100 in 11 years and he's still complaining. I worked hard to buy this house, 80 to 100 hours a week for all of my 20s, and I work hard now to maintain it. You can't find a private room with private bath anywhere near me for the price I'm offering him. The only cheaper place near me is a dormitory-style house where 4 adults share 1 bedroom, 2 bunk beds for $750. I do think that's outrageous and believe what I'm offering is more than fair. I feel like telling him, if you think you can find a better deal, then go do it. He's acting like I'm a jerk for not lowering the rent. Am I the jerk for taking this position? Am I being the jerk for refusing to reduce the rent? Edit. Thank you everyone who responded. Even the "you're the jerk" replies were helpful. I am a people pleaser. I've been working on it in therapy and have had a hard time saying no. I've rented this room out many times for free or extremely reduced rates in the past for people needing help getting back on their feet without issue and did not expect a situation like this to come up. A few people mentioned that I'm price gouging, but it's the opposite. I'm offering the lowest rent you can find in my area. I've received several messages and DMs from Redditors asking to take the space or inquiring for a friend. It may seem high to people living in other areas, but this really is an amazing deal. I know how hard it is to survive in today's world, and this has been my way of giving back. I do perform other community service, like handing out blankets and umbrellas on rainy days or stocking the community refrigerator. But a place to live is the most important thing underprivileged and underserved people need. I will think about how I do this moving forward to better protect myself. Several people provided links about ending his stay, and I am grateful. California does have larger laws, California Civil Code, pertaining to people who rent out a single room in their house that they also live in. I did not want to go this route and demand that he leave, but I feel like I must in order to protect myself. Everyone sucks here. Stop negotiating based on his financial decisions like you're his life partner and calculate the fair market rent for the room. His money is his to manage. He can get himself a used Prius if he wants to, and he can rent a room from you if he wants to. If he can't do both, it's his responsibility to pick one and figure out an alternative for the other. It's not your responsibility to advise on or plan around that choice. Yes, you're the jerk for profiting on housing. No jerks here. As much as I'd like to shoot down a landlord, you do seem to be a fairer one. I think your tenant just needs a reminder of what the rental market is like at the moment. That hardly makes them or you the jerk. Info. Who is this someone? A random dude? Seems strange to let someone stay rent-free with no formal agreement in place, including the discussion of what rent would be after he found this job. You're the jerk for being a landlord with no sense. You're the jerk. That's an absurd amount of money for what he's getting. I had a 2-bedroom apartment to myself in a downtown location for $1,200. You're offering 1 room, amenities, and a roommate situation. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is the tenant? Please let us know. I think the real jerks are these bozos on Reddit who think all landlords are the devil. Oh, it's not their fault, Karen. They're just products of our failed educational system. Am I the jerk for letting my sister walk me down the aisle? I, 23 female, was raised by my older half-sister who's 32. I never met my dad, and our mom passed when I was 10 and my sister was 19. My sister's dad was still in her life and was willing to support her, but not me. My sister chose to be my guardian, and her father's family went low contact with her as a result. In order to raise me, she gave up a lot: her relationship with her father, college, her 20s, and so much more. A few months ago, I got engaged, and I told my sister that in addition to being my maid of honor, I also wanted her to be the one to walk me down the aisle. All my life, she's had to fulfill so many roles for me: big sister, mother, father, friend, that it only felt right that those multiple roles be honored on one of my biggest days of my life. My sister was ecstatic, and so was I. But when I brought it up with my fiancé, he objected. My future in-laws are very traditional, and my fiancé had always expected that his wedding would be a very traditional wedding. He said that it was great that my sister was my maid of honor, but that her having two roles wasn't, and that it wasn't appropriate for her to walk me down the aisle since that's usually done by the father. Apparently, his family had assumed that my future father-in-law would be the one to walk me down the aisle since I don't have any male relatives. I told him that I appreciate his father being willing to do that for me, but that the one who made me the person I am today is my sister, so it's right that she be the one to give me away. It turned into an argument that spread to my in-laws. My mother-in-law called me a few days ago to say that although she understands how important my sister is to me, that it's also my fiancé's wedding and I shouldn't be putting my sister before him on his day. I definitely heard her on that, but this is still important to me. At this point, my sister has even said that she doesn't mind just being the maid of honor and that she doesn't want to turn my happy day into something stressful. So now it's just me holding out and being stubborn, but I really don't want to concede on this point. Am I being the jerk here? Edit. I did not expect this to blow up like it has and haven't been able to read through all of your verdicts and comments yet, but I want to clarify on some of the inquiries that I've seen repeated so far. Are the in-laws contributing to the wedding? Yes. In fact, they're paying for about 75% of it since I'm still in school and I don't have the money to put towards a wedding the scale that fiancé wanted. Does your fiancé have sisters? No, he has 2 younger brothers. Did he ask your sister for your hand? He did, actually. She also helped him custom design the engagement ring. She showed me their group text, and at one point, they spent 3 weeks trying to decide between 5 different diamonds. Maybe I should just propose with an infinity gauntlet. It was very sweet and cute. What about when you have kids? Have you talked about having kids? Because of a medical condition, I'm infertile, though neither of us feel a particular strong urge to be parents anyway. But we also know we're still young and that may change. But even if it does, it would be very far in the future. Could you walk down the aisle by yourself? That was my sister's suggestion when she said she was fine just being the maid of honor, but I rejected it. Because of her, I never walked alone on the worst days of my life, so I'm definitely not going to walk alone on the happiest. Not the jerk. And this is a hill to die on in my opinion. How is it that you're holding out and being stubborn? Couldn't you say that about your fiancé? He wants to take away something meaningful to you because he wants things to appear his way. That's entirely self-serving. You're not putting your sister before him. You're putting her on your side, right where you want her. This is weird controlling behavior on your fiancé's part, and it gives me a very bad vibe about him and his family. What happens down the road when or if you decide to have kids? If you pick out a kid's name, does he get to veto that and replace it with a name of his choosing too? What's your role going to be in the household, and is that okay with you? I'm not saying to end things over this disagreement, but do take a good look at where you are and where you're heading before going forward. OP. I guess I started feeling like I was being stubborn when my sister also suggested that I drop it. I was the only one fighting my side of the fight, and everyone else was coming at me with, "I understand, but," and it made me feel like I was the unreasonable one. That's why I came here, to get some unbiased opinions. Your sister is trying to cause you as little stress as possible, and if that means she has to step back from something she clearly wants to do, then she'll do it. It will hurt her, but she will do it to save you from stress and pain. She's already shown she will sacrifice herself to keep you happy and healthy. I would gladly die on this hill if the person I'm marrying said he gets to choose who walks me down the aisle. Not the jerk. 1. What a wonderful way to honor your sister and the roles that she's played in your life. 2. Your partner's inability to grasp something so significant to you is disturbing. 3. The fact that your mother-in-law and probably your partner think that you're putting yourself ahead of his or their feelings would make me run from them all. Not the jerk. Honestly, him running to his family and them coming after you on his behalf makes me a little hesitant about your current communication and conflict resolution within your relationship. You clearly have an imbalance of family support. I'm worried you're going to be completely crushed under their collective weight. Are you always going to have to give in because they get a vote and outnumber you? Well, who do you think's in the right? OP or her fiancé? Please let us know. Anyone can show you their true colors, but it's up to you to see them for who they really are. Should I keep my wife's promise to take care of her parents? My wife passed 3 years ago in an accident. I'm now a single father to our 3 kids, who are 11, 8, and 5. It's been incredibly difficult providing for them by myself, but they've never wanted for anything a day in their life. Thanks to therapy and a good support system, they're happy, healthy, and thriving. In my wife's culture, it's customary for kids to take care of their parents in their old age. Her parents very much expected this of her. This was something my wife talked to me extensively about before and during our marriage. Actually, it was something we fought about a lot, because I felt that our focus should be on our kids and doing everything we could to give them a good life. My wife wanted to house her parents in our home, but I disagreed for multiple reasons, such as cost and lack of living space. We eventually agreed to help them pay for a condo or other living arrangements, but not house them. Sadly, we never got a chance to figure out exactly how that would work. Her parents, her mom specifically, took my wife's passing hard and fell into depression. She pretty much became a recluse, and neither her nor my father-in-law have been very involved in our lives since her passing. However, my father-in-law recently retired and reached out to me about honoring my wife's promise to help take care of them in their old age. I flat out told him that I cannot honor that promise. He got upset and told me that this was something that his daughter had promised him and his wife, and as her husband, it is now my responsibility to keep that promise. I told him that I have 3 kids to provide for, and I do not have the time, energy, or money to provide for 2 more people. He told me I was disgracing my wife's honor and memory, and that he knew it was a mistake for her to marry outside of her culture. He called me again a few days later and tried to apologize for what he said. He told me that he acted irrationally and that he's sure we can work something out that will be beneficial for everyone. I asked him what he meant by that, and he said that he and his wife could come live with us so that I have help with the kids and I can still honor my wife's promise to her parents. I again flat out told him no. I told him that I've managed fine the past 3 years without their help and I'll continue to do fine. I told him his proposal is only beneficial to them, not to me in any way. He again tried to tell me that I need to do this to honor his daughter's memory, as this was something that she promised to him and his wife. I told him that sadly, that promise had ended with his daughter. He said something to me in his native language that I'm assuming from his tone was not a compliment and hung up on me. They've been minimally involved in our lives since her passing. Their needs are so far down my priority list, but I'm torn because I hate feeling like I'm letting my wife down in any way, even if she's not here anymore. Widow here. My late husband's mother is a single older woman with 2 living daughters. However, she believed my husband and I would build a tiny home on our land for her and care for her and support her in her old age. We have an elementary-aged kid. I was never on board with this plan, and neither was my husband. But he did ask me to look out for his mom after he passed. He got sick, so we had time to talk through all of this. By looking out for her, he meant stay in her life, check on her, and be there in the event of an emergency. After he passed, his mother went absolutely feral on me, making heinous accusations, blaming me for stealing her son from her, and promising me that she would never forgive me for being the one her son loved more than her. It's been almost 4 months since he passed, and I've cut her from my life. I feel guilty sometimes, but I'm a widow in my early 30s with a kid to provide for. I cannot sacrifice my peace or my time with my kid to care for a fully grown adult who failed to plan for her own future and who has been an absolute monster to me. All this to say, as someone in a similar situation, your priorities are your kid and yourself. You matter. Your needs matter. You are categorically not the jerk. They abandoned their daughter's kids for 3 years. They've only resurfaced because they want something from you. Truly, you're not the jerk. Don't feel bad for 1 more second. Care for yourself and your family. I wish you all the best, and I'm so sorry for your loss. Not the jerk. Odd that he didn't take this up with you until after he made the choice to retire and stop supporting himself. Apparently, it also didn't occur to him that you had only 1 income rather than 2, so you might have had to try to take care of more than just your immediate family. Am I the jerk for uninviting my mother-in-law for my wedding after she tried to sabotage my wedding dress? My future mother-in-law has never been a fan of me, I'm 26, female, for the entire duration of mine and my fiance's, who's 29, male, relationship. I'm honestly not sure why it is that she's always disliked me and has been cold to me, but after multiple attempts over the years to build some type of relationship with her, we've been together for 4 years, nothing has worked. She couldn't give two hoots about me up until the wedding planning started a few months ago. My fiance and I are paying for the majority of our wedding ourselves, while my dad and stepmom are financial contributing as well. Mother-in-law and father-in-law have not contributed at all, but mother-in-law is giving her opinions on things as if she's footing the bill. You should make the themes this color. Make sure you have this dish on the menu to be served. Don't do an open bar. You don't want people being too rowdy. Make sure me, my sister, and my cousins are sitting in the front row at the wedding ceremony, etc., etc. My fiance and I are absolutely sick of this. Every time she tries to give an opinion, we politely shut it down and tell her we have it under control, but she just never gets the hint. Before she became such a nightmare, I regretfully invited her to come dress shopping because I didn't want her to feel left out. Well, a few weeks ago, we went dress shopping. My mom and close friends came too, and I found my dream wedding dress. I have a curvy hourglass figure, and I found a dress that shows off my figure perfectly and makes me feel gorgeous. The dress is kind of revealing, low cut and mermaid style, but it's nothing I'd be ashamed of my family and friends seeing me in. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, hated the dress I chose. She made sure to express to me multiple times. She even went as far as to say, "This is a wedding, not a dance club. I don't like it." Well, I bought the dress anyway, since I'm the one who's paying for it after all. Last night, my fiance and I are cleaning up after dinner, and I received a call from the shop I ordered my dress from. They were calling me concerned, because apparently a lady, my mother-in-law, called them pretending to be me and wanted to switch the dress I chose to a more appropriate one. The sales associate realized that it wasn't my phone number that called to make the change, and called me immediately to confirm before they changed the order. I was livid. My fiance heard the entire conversation and was also livid. He called his mom to confront her, and she fessed up, after denying it a few times. I told her if she's so bothered by my dress to consider herself uninvited from the wedding, and I hung up on her. Safe to say, she's not happy. She's been calling both my husband and I nonstop, trying to defend herself, but I've had enough. I feel bad for my fiance because he won't get to have his planned dance with her. Did I take it too far? Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I would have done the same thing. But you and your fiance need to be in lockstep on this. So if he is, or starts hedging, don't go through with the wedding until you are both on the same page. You need to get these boundaries in place now, because mother-in-law will be a nightmare if you have kids, if you don't already. This is the easiest not the jerk ever. 1. This isn't her wedding. 2. She isn't paying for anything, let alone the dress. 3. She seems like a confrontational person to begin with. Time to have fun at your wedding without having to worry about her ruining it by being there. Lie about your natural hair color? Have fun with an awful dye job. My wife, 22 female, and I, 22 male, got my little sister, who's 12, some semi-permanent red hair dye for Christmas. She really wanted it and was really looking excited to using it on herself and her cousins. The hair dye is bright red, assuming you're light blonde or bleached, but sister has dark brunette hair, so the dye becomes a dark burgundy on her. Everything that follows is what she told me. I wasn't there for any of it. Sister brought her hair dye to family Christmas at Grandma's so she could share it with our plethora of cousins. One of our cousins, Anna, who's 16, is pretty entitled. She's a compulsive liar and a manipulator. I keep my audio recording app handy on my phone when I'm around her should I have to use it because I don't trust her. Anna asked sister to have her hair dyed. Anna obviously has had her hair bleached to a medium light or light blonde. Sister asked Anna, "Is your hair bleached or dyed? If it is, then it's going to turn out really bright and look crazy." Anna said, "No, what? Haha, this is my natural hair color." This is where the malicious compliance comes in. Sister and my other cousins share a knowing look before getting to work. After they let the paste sit for a reasonable amount of time, they wash it out. Instead of pretty mauve accents like in sister's hair, the back of Anna's hair looks like a bright, clowny, patchy mashup. Anna's response, I kid you not, was to look surprised and say, "Oh yeah, I did bleach my hair. I totally forgot this wasn't my natural hair color." At this moment, Anna's mother came in and was not happy. Anna wanted to take even more dye from my sister to try and even out the clown hair she had given herself, but Anna's mom stood up for my sister and wouldn't let her take any more. This dye is only semi-permanent, but it will still take 10 to 15 shampoos to be fully washed out. I only learned all this because I took my sister out on a breakfast date after New Year's. I was worried that Anna had bullied sister into using as much hair dye as she did. When I asked about it, it turns out sister just wanted to let Anna pay for her obvious lie. Edit to clarify some things. Okay, so it seems like some things are being missed or misunderstood. I had nothing to do with any of the actual malicious compliance. I simply got my little sister the gift she asked for. I didn't dye anyone's hair, and I didn't record any of this. I'm retelling my sister's and other cousins' retelling of the events. I'm not recording any video or audio of every interaction I have with Anna. In fact, I don't even see her that much. I mostly avoid her. For those of you accusing me of being a creep and calling this a self-report, that's a new one for me. Not totally sure how to respond other than saying read the story end to end. Maybe you're missing something. A lot of people are saying I made this up. I did not. I saw parts of this as it happened, and my sister filled me in on the rest. A couple of you were judging me for being married at 22 and even rooting for a future divorce in the comments. My wife and I are currently very happy, but I will let you guys know if divorce ever comes. Neighbors have been using my driveway to access their property. I bought a house with a very weird driveway situation. The previous owner owned 2 houses next to each other, sold one to me and kept the other. My property has 2 driveways, one on the north for a detached garage and one on the south for my house. Their property has no driveway of its own to connect to the street, so when the previous owner sold the place, he drafted an easement for them to use the northern driveway only. My southern driveway also connects to the neighbor's property, and they have a 4-car paved section that they park their cars on. They access this by using my house's driveway, not covered by an easement, so no maintenance agreement for their use. I didn't want to cause problems with the neighbors right off the bat, so I let them continue to use it. They use it 3 times as much as I do. He seems pretty put off that he could no longer park cars on my property, but was thankful to use the driveway since if I didn't allow it, he would be down 4 parking spaces. They are tenants. The owner and previous owner of my house is a jerk who has 4 families in a 4-bedroom house. There's 12 cars, 4 of which are inoperable, 3 boats, one of which is the landlord's, and a motorcycle between them. This guy has real anger issues though. He constantly speeds through my driveway going backwards between my parked cars. I asked him to please slow down and he agreed, but he can't help himself. Recently, he's also started parking his cars on my property when the street sweeper is coming through. I have tenants renting rooms who are concerned about the noise and the safety of their vehicles. I'm tired of feeling on edge. Last weekend, he absolutely floored it down my driveway, peeling out. I got mad and put a planter in the driveway to block it off. He lost it, moved the planters, and continued on. He came at me absolutely rabid. His wife came out and started going off on me. I tried to de-escalate and told them that I'd be putting in a fence in a week to block it off, to give him time to figure out a parking solution. They can still use the north driveway covered by the easement. He's upset because he felt entitled to keep using my private driveway, and now he's flooring it every time he comes and goes. I'm in fear for my tenant's vehicle safety as well as my own physical safety, as this guy is clearly unstable. I'm tired of feeling taken advantage of by their use and so disrespected by his behavior. I feel I have no choice but to stand up for myself in this situation. I've been beyond patient, but I need to act if his behavior is scaring my tenants. I also have mild PTSD from living next to a house where I experience similar aggressive behavior daily. I'm fearful of what might happen next weekend when I build the fence. Should I call a friend to come over and help? What would you do? I would definitely have at least one friend there when putting up the fence. Also, record video of it, in case problems come up during the build. Put up a no trespassing sign immediately. Install cameras facing that driveway and anywhere else appropriate in case they retaliate against the vehicles that park there legally or if he tampers with the fence. You can also use them to enforce trespassing charges. Document every interaction with this neighbor in case you need it for later. For instance, if you need to get a restraining order. Good luck. Karen tried to control my diet, so I kicked her out. My friend Jen got laid off a couple of months ago. She's currently staying with me to save money until she finds a new job. Jen believes her being overweight has caused her to have low confidence, which then caused her to lose her job. Therefore, she decided to go on a diet to lose weight. I'm in full support of her decision, as I figured, regardless of her reasons, it can't be wrong to lose weight and be healthy. Jen downloaded an app that tells her what to eat and what to not eat, and she is not supposed to eat candy and other sweets. I like sweets, but to support her, I've stopped having cakes, milkshakes, etc. at home. The only sweets I have at home are candies. She said to me that candies were too enticing to her and I should get rid of them. But I need candies. They help me concentrate while I'm working. I work from home, and candies have been part of my diet for years. To accommodate her needs, I told her that I would not eat candies in front of her, and I would keep my candy in my bedroom, which she should not have access to. She got upset, saying I was not being a supportive friend, but I said I was being supportive, as I have made enough accommodations to make sure that no foods forbidden by her diet were accessible or visible to her. She was still pouting. This morning, when I came back from my daily run, I found her in my bedroom searching for stuff. I asked her what she's doing. She said she needed to find my junk foods and throw them away. This was completely unacceptable to me. For one, we agreed when she moved in that she should not enter my bedroom without my permission. I don't have a big apartment, and my bedroom is the only place where I can have some privacy. And she breached that agreement. And two, I do not believe she has the right to throw away any of my belongings. At this point, I told her if she couldn't respect my space and my routine, which do not affect her, she needed to leave. She threw a fit, accusing me of abandoning her at her most difficult time. But I explained that I wasn't kicking her out for no reason and that she's welcome to stay, but she would need to respect my boundaries. Am I the jerk here? Update. Thank you everyone for your comments. I really appreciate your insights. After our argument this morning, Jen went somewhere to clear her head. She just returned and we had a conversation. She asked me if I really wanted to kick her out. I said not exactly. My intention was mainly to remind her of my boundaries, but if those boundaries keep being breached, I would really need her to leave. She said she understood, but she realized that her staying here for too long would jeopardize our friendship, and she would not want that. She will find another solution to her living situation. Not the jerk in any way. You were nice enough to host your friend while she tries to get back on her feet. You were also kind enough to accommodate her requests about junk food in common and shared spaces. The violation of your privacy by going into your room in and of itself would be enough to kick her out. This is on her. OP. Thank you. She wasn't happy when I told her that she couldn't enter my bedroom without asking because before she moved in, she was allowed to do whatever she wanted when she visited me. But it's different this time. She basically lives here now. I need to set some boundaries to protect my privacy. She could not be more wrong and has completely violated your privacy. What you eat is none of her business. You actually shouldn't have even given up what you did, cakes and milkshakes. You were too nice, and that might have been slightly enabling to her kind of crazy. Part of her weight loss journey is going to be learning how to live in a world full of food she chooses not to eat. Also, I don't believe she was going through your room trying to throw that stuff out. She was going to eat it. Not the jerk. My boyfriend and my brother lied to me for 8 years. Context and a very short version. When I was 17, I was in a relationship with my twin brother's best friend, Jake. It lasted 8 years till we were all finished with college and my ex had gotten enough money off his extremely religious parents to get a head start in life. If you don't know where this is going, my brother and Jake were together the whole time and used me as a cover because my feelings didn't matter. My brother had been out since his teens, which is why they came up with the idea to use me so his parents wouldn't get suspicious. My parents were angry with my brother, even cut contact for a year, but they all made up and have been pushing for us to speak since. I refused to speak to my brother due to how they dismissed me when everything came out. Jake literally said, "You wouldn't understand. I had no other choice." My brother was worse. Like, I get where Jake was coming from because his parents are nuts, but I didn't deserve to be treated like that. It's been 5 years since everything came out. I'm currently pregnant with twins with my soon-to-be husband. My brother and Jake moved back to our hometown last year. They have both been trying via my family and friends, even coworkers, to get me to talk. My mother begged me to sit down like an adult and don't let the past ruin my son's chance at having a relationship with our uncle. That my grudge I have against my sibling is ruining our family and my mental health. A few hours ago, I stopped by for lunch and to show my parents scanned photos. Guess who was there? The happy couple. I was literally in shock for a few minutes. Then when my brother tried to hug me, I pushed him away. I got so worked up, I physically couldn't stop shaking at this. My brother and Jake tried to apologize, talked about what happened, and begged for a relationship. I was in tears and begged them to leave me alone. In the end, my brother handed me a letter and said, "I really wish things could be different. You're my sister, my twin. I do love you, and it hurts me that we don't have each other anymore. So basically, I'd lost it, ripped up the letter, screaming that we weren't family, and I just want him to leave me alone. I walked out after that and had to get a taxi home because I was too upset to drive. Since then, my parents and family members have told me I'm cruel and bitter and that I need to stop living in the past and get over it. Hey guys, I won't be replying anymore because I'm very emotional and don't feel well. Not due to anyone in this sub, you're all amazing, but someone gave my brother my number, and with my family's non-stop calls, I'm gonna have to turn my phone off for my own sake. And before anyone asks, my fiance said in the family group, if anyone shows up at our home, they'd better hope the cops get there before he answers the door. I'd like to answer a few questions a lot of people keep asking before I go. After 8 years, why didn't you see any signs? Basically, my brother and ex were always close, and I obviously never thought that they'd do something like that to me. Like, your brother is meant to protect you from the bad guys. What kind of relationship did you and Jake have? We lived together for 2 years, and we did everything a normal couple does, so I hope that clears up a lot of curiosity. Why are you more angry at your brother than Jake? I will never forgive Jake, but I did and still do pity his situation with his parents. The reason I'm more angry at my twin brother should be obvious. What do you plan to do with your parents? As of now, I will go no contact till my babies are born, and at least 3 months old so I can be in the right headspace. Are you in therapy? Yes, it helped me love myself again and trust people. I'm in a way better place than I was a few years ago. Not the jerk. I feel sorry for Jake with his parents, but what he and your brother did to you is horrible. They betrayed your trust, both as a romantic partner and as a sibling. If they had told you the truth at age 16, you might have even offered to be a cover. But instead, they chose to lie to you for 8 years. No one, not your brother, not your parents, no one gets to determine when you should be over it. You are not obliged to accept any apology ever. And tell your parents if they can't respect your feelings and your decision, they will no longer be part of you or your children's lives. Karen invites me over for dinner, then demands I pay her for it. Typing this out sounds insane, and I really don't think I'm in the wrong, but I need to know. A friend invited me to a dinner party at her house a few weeks ago. The actual dinner party was last night. I asked if I should bring anything, but she said no, it's not a potluck. She'll be making dinner for everyone. There were 7 of us in total, and the food was good. During the meal, we were all laughing and called our friend, the dinner host, a chef because she made a big dinner for all of us, and we all said how much we appreciated it because it's hard to get everyone together at the same time. At the end of the dinner, we all helped her clean, we did the dishes, and we had some wine. It started getting late, so people started to head out. And on our way out, the dinner host said, "Don't forget to Venmo, Cash App, or Zelle me." Some of us were confused because we had no idea that we had to send her money. So I asked, "What am I sending you money for?" And she said, "For cooking dinner." Me, "I don't understand why we should pay." Her, "Because I spent my money and hosted the dinner and cooked." Me, "None of us asked you to. You volunteered to do it, and you never mentioned paying until now." "I didn't do this for free." Me, "You should have told us before you hosted that you expected this. I don't think it's fair to just bring this up and expect people to pay." She called me a jerk and said again that she didn't spend hours cooking, grocery shopping for free. I've never heard of this, like ever. We kept arguing, and after a while, I just Venmo'd her the $40 she asked for. I don't think I'm the jerk at all, and some of my friends agree with me. Some have said that it's normal to pay for dinner during a dinner party at someone else's house, so now I'm not sure. Edit. A lot of you asked what she made, and it was some salad that I've never heard of. The main course was smoked Gouda mashed potatoes with beef short ribs. A dessert I forgot the name of. I think she said she bought this from a bakery. She also made vegan mashed potatoes and vegan ribs for one of our friends who's vegan. She also made, or bought, chicken skewers as the appetizer. Even though she said not to bring anything, I brought rum cake from my local bakery. And yes, everyone brought something small. We also had charcuterie and cheese boards that 2 of the girls brought. Some girls brought wine, and we even had one girl bring candles to set the mood. We're in the US and none of us are European. I spoke with some of the others, and although they had paid for a dinner party before, it was at least discussed first. No one has ever done what this friend did, which was sprung up on us at an unexpected cost. All of us are in our early 30s. The group chat is going crazy right now because everyone is upset with her. Not the jerk. What your friend did was extremely scummy. She invites all these people to dinner that she's making, no mention of pain before and after this. And then when everyone is done eating and finished cleaning, out of the blue she expects everyone to give her money. If I was expected to pay for dinner without knowing until after I ate, I would have skipped the dinner entirely. Cut contact with this friend. She shouldn't be hosting dinner parties if she's going to pull stunts like this. Some have said that it's normal to pay for dinner during a party at someone else's house. No, this is not normal. It's normal at restaurants, but at someone's house? This ain't normal, and it sure isn't normal to wait until after the dinner was eaten and everyone helped clean up. $40 is a bummer, but in the long run, it's a small price to pay to learn that your friend is tacky, cheap, has bad manners, and has no social intelligence whatsoever. Consider it part of the cost of doing business as an adult, and handle your relationship with her in the future accordingly. You're the jerk. She has a house. It's up to you to pay her mortgage, taxes, and utilities. Oh, that's a joke. No. Am I the jerk for not letting my miracle baby niece be the flower girl? I'm 27, female. My older brother and sister-in-law, both in their mid-30s, just welcomed their first kid a year and a half ago, after years of trying. After many failed attempts, sister-in-law was told that she wouldn't be able to conceive due to a medical condition she has. They finally got pregnant. Since having my niece, the baby has been the center of attention at every family event we've had since she was born. Birthdays, weddings, family get-togethers, you name it. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my niece, but it can get to be a little too much when my sister-in-law goes on and on about how long they tried to conceive, complications they had, etc. Like a little too much info. Many family members have commented on how it's a bit excessive, but no one has said anything because they don't want to sound like a jerk. Anyway, I'm getting married in the spring, and my brother and sister-in-law approached me last weekend about having my niece be the flower girl. Now, my fiance, 35, male, has 2 kids, a son who's 10 and a daughter who's 6, from his previous marriage. His son is one of his groomsmen, while his daughter had asked to be our flower girl when we told them the news that we were getting married a year ago, as it's something she's always wanted to do. So of course we said yes. So I explained this to my sister-in-law when she asked me about my niece. She asked if my stepdaughter can just carry my niece with her. I said I don't think she'd be comfortable with that considering she's 6. She then asked why I can't just give that role to my niece and allow herself to carry my niece down as the flower girl. I said no, because I already promised my stepdaughter. She then started going off about how my lack of effort to incorporate my niece is disgusting to her. I should honor her in some way since I know how long and hard they tried for my niece. Now, I may sound like a jerk for this, but I kind of got fed up and I snapped and said, "Incorporate my niece how? By the time the wedding comes around, she'll be 2 years old. The entire family already knows your story about how long and hard you guys tried for her. What more do you expect me to do to honor her?" She started crying and said that clearly I don't love my one and only niece and I'm letting her down. I said of course I love my niece and obviously she's going to be involved in pictures and stuff, but I'm not going to let my stepdaughter down by giving my niece a role she's too young to remember anyway. Well, now sister-in-law and my brother are upset with me for not letting my niece be the flower girl and are running around telling the rest of the family I don't love my niece. My mom had been trying to stay neutral, but thinks my stepdaughter would understand if I explained to her I need to give that role to my niece. I'm firm in my decision though, and my fiance is thankful that I didn't let his daughter down. Am I the jerk for not allowing my niece to be the flower girl? Not the jerk. Let them be upset. If ever there was a time to take a stand for your stepdaughter, it's now. Without knowing her story or how she came to be part of your life, she's 6 years old and you've made a commitment to be in her life. The moment you make it official revolves around her as much as it does you. You absolutely have every right to honor the stepdaughter over the niece, and these first moments as stepmom are going to cause the ripple that forms the pond that is your relationship with her whole life. Trust me, if you back down now and give her spot away, it's going to ruin more than just your wedding. OP. I 100% agree. I came from a family with 2 divorced parents myself, and I'll never forget how crappy I felt when at my dad and stepmom's wedding, I wasn't included in it at all. Yet my younger brother was one of the groomsmen. Having that experience myself, I'd never want my stepdaughter to feel that way, or that she isn't involved in such a special day. It just causes so much drama in the family that it's so unnecessary. Not the jerk. She's their miracle baby, not yours. The fact that they want you to disappoint your soon-to-be stepdaughter in order to make their daughter the focus of your wedding is absurd. Not the jerk. It is your wedding. I don't know what gives people this sense of entitlement when it comes to events they aren't planning. If you want to compromise, at the age of 2, the baby should be walking. Maybe they could hold hands and walk. I had both of my nieces as flower girls, who were 2 and 9. Greedy owner tries to rip off my friend, ends up paying him double. My first job out of college was for a local TV station. The owner was, and still is, the worst human being I've ever met. This guy had money, but he would cheat and lie, anything to get out of paying his bills. When I started working there, the owner had just signed a contract with DirecTV to become part of their broadcast package. Since they were, at the time, purely a local TV station, this meant that we had about 2 months to upgrade our system so that we could start broadcasting to DirecTV customers in the entire Bay Area. Every day that we failed to do this past the deadline means that the owner would suffer a penalty per the contract. Not knowing how any of this works, the owner hired a friend of mine to come in as a freelance consultant. My friend told him that for about $15,000 he can get a system that will automate the entire process, which of course this guy didn't want to pay. He tasked my friend with finding a cheaper way, around half, and to pay for all of the hardware up front and get reimbursed later. Knowing what a jerk this guy is, I warned my friend not to front the money because he wouldn't get paid back. The guy just smiled and said, "Watch me." So he made it work. We went live on schedule and the owner was happy. Then my friend went in and presented the guy with the bill. Immediately, the usual excuses start. "Oh, I'm a little short this month. Can I pay you later?" etc. Then my friend pulled out the trump card. Not only did my friend threaten to take all the equipment back and take the station off the air, he reveals that in order to get the uplink working for cheap, he needs someone to come in every day and code the broadcast manually. It's not a terribly complicated procedure, takes less than 5 minutes. But of course, no one else at the station knows how to do it but him. So either the owner can pay him what he's owed, plus a $2,000 a month consulting fee, or the station goes dark and he starts paying the penalty to DirecTV. The jerk paid fast. So instead of $15,000, he ended up shelling out more than double that amount as my friend lapped up his $2,000 a month fee for close to a year before he felt bad and finally taught someone there how to do it. Moral of the story, only thinking about short-term gain will always cost you more in the long run. Am I the jerk for avoiding a game day I wasn't invited to? I'm female, 45. My husband, who's 44, has a group of friends he occasionally has over for a day of board games, like an 8 to 10 hour stretch. He goes to their houses to do the same. In the past, I was invited lots of the time, along with other wives and girlfriends. As we got older and kids came along, or for whatever reason, I'm not invited to participate. No other partners are either. It's probably been about 5 or 6 years. I've known these people for more than 20 years and I like them. I like games too. But whatever, it's his friend group, not mine. To be clear, I am explicitly not invited to join in. Now, when he hosts, I try to be out of the house doing other things. When I'm home, I go to a different floor of the house and just hang out by myself. I say hi briefly when I see his friends, but I don't stick around or have longer conversations. He asked why I'm like this, with annoyance, after the last one. He says one guy's wife is in the kitchen with them and cooks for them most of the day. She likes doing that. It's not a weird role thing. Another sits with them and chats. He says it's awkward that I don't do that and very clearly avoid the house entirely if I can, and then that floor if I can't. From my perspective, informed by a lonely childhood, I have absolutely no interest in hanging out around the edges of a social thing I'm not invited to. That seems so sad, pitiful, and desperate. I kind of had enough of doing that sort of thing more than 30 years ago. I'm not invited. How could I possibly tell if I'm an annoyance or too much, or affecting the dynamic from what they intended the dynamic to be by not having partners there? Further, it does hurt that I had been included and now I'm not. I really liked them and playing games. I guess that wasn't so much mutual. I'm always kind of sad that I'm not in a marriage where couple friends are a thing. We're friendly to each other's friends, but he, while entirely welcome, also isn't interested in hanging out with my friends. Maybe that's a rare situation for people. It's not what he wants, and he has a right to that. But I can be sad about it. He seems to think I am therefore pouting and taking it out on him. I think if I'm not included, it's crazy that there would be a problem with me absolutely not being there. So tell me, am I being an awkward and rude jerk? Edit to clarify a few questions. Yes, this has been communicated. Read the last 2 paragraphs like a conversation, with these words and details exchanged, because it was. Secondly, why I'm not included is irrelevant. It's completely acceptable to want to hang with your friends by yourself, even in a marriage. The change happened mainly due to ease of playing with a smaller crowd. It sucks for me, but no one is being explicitly mean to me by not including me. Third, I have stuff I'm happy to do on my own. I have my own friends, and while I get the nice intentions, I have no interest in making a friend group with the sole shared commonality of our husbands are friends, or excluded spouse spite game day. That seems extra and sad to me for some reason. Not the jerk. I would do the same thing. If I were explicitly not invited to a gathering, I would, obviously, not hang around. It sounds like your husband wants it both ways here. He wants you around to chat, etc., but you are explicitly not invited to take part in the entire reason for the gathering. So I'd consider him the jerk for complaining when you leave their gathering, to which you're not invited. If anything, I would consider it rude if I were to hang around when I'm not invited. There's no gray area in my mind. Your husband seems like a weirdo. I'm sorry, but all I can hear is, all the other mommies make us milk and cookies while we play Dungeons and Dragons. Why can't you? Not the jerk. There's nothing that says you need to play hostess to a party you don't get to join. It's the prerogative of the other wives to host, but that doesn't mean anything for you. You can do as you please. Ask him why the invites for you to play stopped. Info. What exactly does he want you to do? Provide snacks and then just sit and watch them play for 6 hours? If that is the case, then absolutely not the jerk. How would that be fun for you or comfortable for his friends? Assuming this takes place on a day off work, you should get to spend it doing what you want to relax, just as he is. You're the jerk. Possibly everyone sucks here, but either way, only somewhat mildly. It is kind of weird that you go to great lengths to completely ignore the game day group. I'm part of a game group that alternates between various locations, and in each place, the family members will occasionally stop by as they go about their own things. It seems to me you're hiding out of spite or hurt. None of us would ever expect our partners to cater to us, so if this is an exception that you want to get away from, a healthier way would be to address this directly. Also, if you're bummed about not getting to play as much anymore, I'd encourage you to find or build your own gaming group. It doesn't have to be with the other spouses. It seems to me that while you recognize that he has the right to do his own thing, you are nonetheless hurt by being unceremoniously uninvited and have not resolved this within yourself or with him. Daughter constantly complains to me about her upbringing. I, 45 female, had my daughter, CJ, who's now 28, when I was 17 years old. Her father did not stick around, and we really struggled for a bit. Even when I graduated college, I had a bunch of student loan debt, as well as juggling rent, food, and other expenses. CJ never lacked necessities, but I admit she didn't get a lot of material possessions. I would try to save up as much as possible to make Christmas and birthdays as fun as possible, but she didn't get much else throughout the year, and we only went on 2 vacations total in her childhood. We definitely ate a lot of struggle meals and had to move often. We honestly teetered on the poverty line. When CJ was 17, I was finally debt-free, got a promotion at work, and I was doing much better. I did start to give her things throughout the year. I used my bonus to take her to Disney World, somewhere she had always wanted to go but couldn't. It was nice that after years of struggling, I could spoil her a little. She went off to college, and in this time I met my husband, Matthew. We got married, and now we have 2 kids together, Jack, who's 5, and Melissa, who's 6. With our combined incomes, we live quite comfortably. I admit, Jack and Melissa have gotten a lot more than CJ did at that age. I've certainly never left her out. She's always invited on our trips, we pay for them. I get her random gifts throughout the year. Birthdays and Christmases are bigger. I'm trying to make it up as even as I can, but I know it realistically will never be. CJ first pointed out the discrepancy a couple of years ago when we took the kids to Disney. CJ went with us. I sat CJ down and apologized for her childhood. I said I wish I had been in a better place when she was their age. I know I can never truly make up for it, etc. I said I know it'll take time for her to heal from that. I thought that was it, but since then, CJ has constantly complained whenever her siblings get anything. I'm always super sensitive to her feelings, validate them, etc. But things came to a head recently on Jack's birthday. Instead of a party, he opted to see the off-Broadway production of Frozen. We, as always, invited CJ to come along, as well as her fiancé. The whole night she was pouting and seemed upset. I tried talking to her, but she brushed it off. We went to dinner after the show. Jack and Melissa were excitedly talking about it. CJ then butted in. "You know what I got for my 5th birthday, Jack? A Barbie from the dollar store." The kids didn't really see the big deal, but the adults at the table understood. I was civil the rest of the meal, but later I called CJ and told her what she did was unacceptable. I cannot continuously apologize for her upbringing, and she can't throw it in my face. I asked her if she wanted me to give her siblings less simply because she did. She said no, but that she can bring it up whenever she wants and she'll continue to do so. I said I was disappointed and hung up. Later, CJ sent me a very long text telling me I was a horrible mother. Am I the jerk? I understand CJ's position. I can't think of one present I ever received from my parents. Not to discredit them, because they paid for literally everything in my life. But I always knew they did their best, and I've always been grateful. CJ really needs to speak with a therapist and work on her insecurities. I don't get the hint from your post that you neglected her while giving her siblings more. Not the jerk. I can't understand it at all. She's 28 years old and she's jealous of a 5-year-old. She wasn't destitute. Her mother was doing the best she could. She got Christmas and birthday presents. OP, she's being utterly petulant. You've been way more than kind acknowledging the difference, including her and being generous with gifts and holidays now. Like, how long does she expect you to grovel? Time for her to grow up. Not the jerk for sure. Not the jerk from the info given. She's almost 30 years old and acting like a petulant child. From what you said, you truly did your best to raise her in a healthy and happy home and make sure she felt loved and had fun things from time to time. It sounds like she resents your new family with your husband and younger kids, but life goes on and you include her in all these vacations, etc. And you did the best you could as a young single mother and built a better financial life over time and with the help of a stable partner. It sounds like CJ needs therapy to work through these issues. She doesn't seem to have any perspective or maturity. Unless there's more to the story. You're the jerk. Guess what? You can't control how your daughter feels and can't expect her to just forget her crappy childhood. Soft, you're the jerk. You can't help that you didn't have the money to give her a good childhood, but you also can't blame her for being resentful, seeing you showering her younger siblings with gifts and vacations constantly. There's a chance she's never going to completely get over that, and you have to decide what that means for your relationship. Honestly, I'd ask your daughter what it would take to make it right. Am I the jerk for refusing to invite my fiancé's sister to our wedding? My fiancé, 28 male, and I, 27 female, are getting married next year. His family is Spanish, but all of them speak perfect English. I don't speak Spanish at all. When I visit his family, no one ever switches over to English. They all always act like I'm not there. They just don't make effort to include me in their conversations at all. I swallowed this for years and I learned to live with it. However, I can't stand how his little sister, who's 27, treats me. Here are some examples. 1. When we visit his family, she always asks my fiancé if they can spend time in two, to have some quality sibling time, without me. Since I don't know anybody in Spain, it just means that they're going out for the whole day and I just stay alone with their parents, who ignore me. I can't comprehend how people can treat their guests like that. I would never dream to tell my fiancé to stay in a room in my hometown because I need some quality time with my sister. 2. I hate the smell of cigarettes. My nose is sensitive and I just can't stand it. I never have problems with it in public. When I smell it, I just move to avoid standing next to them. His sister smokes though, and she knows how much I hate the smell. She was asked many times to move her smoking elsewhere when I'm present, however, she always refused. There were times when we were eating lunch and she was doing this right next to me, knowing it disturbs me a lot. When I wanted to leave the table for 5 minutes to wait out the smoke, my fiancé was calling me rude. Also, when I was refusing to sit down next to her, I was apparently being offensive. 3. We were planning a family trip. One day I was talking to my significant other in English when his sister comes between us and starts talking to my fiancé in Spanish, ignoring my presence completely. He told me that his sister came and asked him to not bring me to that family trip, that it will be better without me, and that I'm not welcome there. I felt so disrespected that someone can stand in front of me and say all of these things in other languages knowing that I wouldn't understand. 4. There were many moments when I was having an English discussion with my fiancé and his sister was just coming in and interrupting us without even hi towards me. She was just starting speaking in Spanish to my fiancé and I was just standing there feeling very unwelcome. She advised my fiancé to break up with me many times. She was telling his whole family mean stuff about me, apparently that I'm jealous, toxic, etc. None of it is true. I was very hurt hearing it, but I get it. If she felt like it, she should inform her brother. But not supporting our relationship makes me not want to invite her to our wedding. More subtle stuff, but character limit. So, now we're preparing a guest list. I don't want to invite her. I know I won't have a good time on my own wedding if she's there. Things she was doing to me were subtle, but I always felt excluded and bad. Am I the jerk? Edit. I'm learning Spanish. My current level is B1. All those situations above happened when I didn't speak a word in Spanish, and I didn't want to confuse people by saying I know Spanish now. Not the jerk. You don't have a future sister-in-law problem, nor a future in-laws problem. You have a fiancé problem. He should be asking family to include you in conversations. He should be asking his sister to keep away from you with her cigarettes. He should have your back. He doesn't. Put this relationship on hold at the very least. Reconsider it carefully. Not the jerk, but you seem to have a fiancé problem. So what if his sister asks him to spend the day with her? He can presumably say no. Also, who cares if his sister says he should break up with you? Is he defending you? Making it clear that he won't entertain that kind of talk from his sister? What exactly is your fiancé doing about these issues? OP. He's very defensive about his family. He's very close with them, and I'm trying not to get in the middle of their relations. To be honest, I think he never defended me or asked them to treat me nicer. Last month, his father visited us, and my fiancé told him that I feel uncomfortable when they speak Spanish all the time, so I won't be joining them for dinners. Seems like they were feeling glad I didn't join them. More family quality time for them, I guess. You sound like a very nice person, but with low self-esteem. That's the only reason I can see why you haven't stood up for yourself by now and dumped your jerk fiancé. And make no mistake, OP, your fiancé is a jerk. His family always excludes you. He does nothing. His family ignores you. He does nothing. They speak badly about you. He does nothing. Do you notice a trend here? Your fiancé is not a good life partner. He sounds like a great son and brother, but as your fiancé, the man gets a failing grade. I'm not sure if he's your first serious relationship, but this is not a healthy dynamic. Him letting his family ignore, offend, and disrespect and hurt you speaks volumes about exactly how much he cares about you. Yes, he's close to his family, but he can be loving to them, but still firm and demanding that they treat you better. I don't think your fiancé will ever entertain your suggestion not to invite his sister. You must know that. All that's going to do is he's going to make you the bad guy in their eyes. Besides, his sister is not the only problem here. The whole family disrespects you and your fiancé allows it. Think about that, OP. Really think about what that means. I advise you to not marry this man as things stand. I knew someone in a similar situation and she deeply regrets it. Often says she wishes she could turn back time and do things differently. I really hope you reconsider what exactly you're signing up for with this family. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her fiancé and his sister? Please let us know. I'm getting some serious Lannister vibes from fiancé and his sister. Re, sweet home Alabama. Karen neighbor stole my mail. I got it back from her. I recently ordered a mini Keurig coffee maker because I'm moving and would like one for my apartment. I could not afford one when I first moved, but I have more money now, so it was something I really wanted to get. I came home from work yesterday and expected to see my Keurig, but it looked like it was not there. I looked at my security camera and found that someone, who I don't recognize, took my Keurig from my front porch. I filed a report with the Postal Service, but I haven't heard anything back yet. I have a friend in my neighborhood, and she was hanging out with our neighbor, and she noticed that my Keurig was at my neighbor's apartment. She asked my neighbor if she could deliver it to me, and my neighbor said no, because it was delivered to her, so therefore it was fair game. This was a lie, and I told my friend that it was not delivered to her, rather it was stolen. I was upset, and I went over there to try to get it back, but she tried to make me pay for it. I threatened to call the police because that's really the only line of defense I knew how to do, and she ended up giving it back. Now, however, she's not speaking to me, and my family thinks that I overreacted. I think it was a bit extreme to threaten to call the police, But mail theft is very serious, and the Keurig was something that I was really looking forward to. I know I shouldn't care if I look bad, but my family's reactions make me think that I was in the wrong. Am I the jerk? Edit. Thank you all for your nice comments. I honestly wasn't sure if I was overreacting, but I've realized that I was not. I will be filing a police report tomorrow, and I'm going to let people know that our neighbor is a thief. Hopefully it makes a difference, and even if not, I'm sure that doing this is the right thing. Also, I decided to open my Keurig, and I love it. I'm very glad I got it back. Not the jerk, but she's a terrible thief to steal and not get rid of the box with your name on it ASAP. OP. I totally agree. That's probably the first thing you get rid of if you're going to take something. The Keurig was still in the box on her kitchen counter. Not the jerk. She stole from you. That's the only point that matters. Why wouldn't you call the police? Especially since you have evidence that she took it. Don't know what your family's thinking saying that you overreacted. She stole and refused to give it back. Therefore, you'd be completely fair to call the police. OP. I just don't know if it's worth my time because I'm moving. I think it might still be a good idea though, only because she could do it again. Am I the jerk for evicting a family so I can move in? My life is kind of in upheaval right now, so I really don't know if I'm the jerk in this situation or not. TA, because my brother is on Reddit. So, background. 6 weeks ago, I, 27, female, found out that my husband, who's 30, has been cheating on me for the past 5 years with a few different women. I immediately moved myself and our kids, who are 7, 5, and 5, to my parents' house, where my brother, who's 22, also lives. Being only a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, it's very cramped, but my parents insisted that I leave my husband. I've only worked part-time for extra cash since the twins started preschool 2 years ago, and was a stay-at-home mom for 5 years before that. My husband owned our house and controlled our finances. I've realized in all of this that I own almost nothing, have almost no work experience, and only have a general studies associate degree. Had to cut college short because I got pregnant. Suffice to say that I'm freaking out about how I'm going to provide for my kids going forward, because I do plan on divorcing. Which brings us to this post. On top of everything, my grandma passed 2 weeks ago. She was very private with her finances, and while we knew she and my late grandpa made money from renting houses, she told my mom a few years ago that she had sold all her rental properties. Come to find out that she kept 2, and in her will left 1 to me and 1 to my brother, only grandkids. The one my brother inherited has been vacant for a bit, but the one I received is a 4-bedroom, 1.5 bath, with a family of 6 that live there, a single mom and 5 kids. She's a friend of a friend, so I do know that her husband passed in 2020 from you-know-what. As much as I obviously miss my grandma, the house is an absolute godsend, and I started crying when I found out about it. I told to my brother and his girlfriend, who's 20, how me and the kids can finally get our life back on track a bit. His girlfriend got really cold and asked if I was really going to evict a family when I could just live with my parents until I get on my feet, especially since my brother is now going to move into his inherited house and make more room. And my brother agreed with her, saying it was selfish. My parents said it's my house and I can do what I want, but they see his point, and that the family living there could easily be in the same situation as me. It's been such an emotional few weeks, so I don't know if I'm being a selfish jerk or not. Edit. This has only been up for a little bit, but thank you so much for the advice and comments so far. It's been such a whirlwind that I forgot that I just need to stop and breathe sometimes. Thanks, anxiety. She's on a month-to-month lease for a little under market rent. I was so focused on the fact that I now own something other than my 15-year-old vehicle that I didn't even consider staying at my parents' for a bit after my brother moves out. I recently started a more full-time position, and my kids love their grandparents, so this makes the most sense while I tackle all the legal stuff that's coming my way. I'll talk to my parents tonight about this route, which would alleviate a ton of guilt I was already feeling about the possibility of eviction. Thanks for snapping me out of my own head for a bit. Not the jerk. Your brother and sister-in-law are guilt-tripping you. Also, the house your cheating husband thinks he owns is half yours. Make him sell or refinance and give you the money. Plus, go for alimony and child support. Do all of this while staying at your parents' and collecting the rent from the home your grandma left you. Now you have cash, an income, and then buy another rental home and start building a rental empire. Good luck. Karen next door demands I get rid of my pet chicken. I've always loved animals, and a few months ago, I decided to get a pet chicken. I named her Lucy, and she quickly became the sweetest little creature. She follows me around the house and garden, and I love having her around. My neighbor, however, is not so thrilled. She has complained several times that Lucy's presence makes her uncomfortable. She says she finds the sight of a chicken in my garden unsettling, and she doesn't like the sound of her clucking. I tried to be understanding at first. I made sure to keep Lucy in a coop during the night, and I even offered to bring her inside during the day when my neighbor was around. But she still seemed unhappy, and eventually she told me that she thought it was unhygienic to have a chicken in a residential area. I was taken aback by this, and I tried to explain that Lucy was perfectly clean and well cared for. I also pointed out that several of our other neighbors have pets, including dogs and cats, which can be just as messy as a chicken. But my neighbor was still insistent that Lucy needed to go. I don't want to get rid of Lucy, but I also don't want to cause any problems with my neighbor. Am I the jerk for keeping my pet chicken, even though it makes her uncomfortable? Edit. Thanks everyone for the thoughtful comments. I just woke up and I'll answer a few of the recurring questions here. There is no law or regulation in my area that prevents me from having chickens. I've seen your comments and messages about getting another chicken, and I will consider that now that I already thought of the name Bradford. I also love the petty route, but I think I'll just fortify the fence a little to make sure Lucy stays on my side. Not the jerk. I would start filling my yard with various chicken sculptures and decor so that she can be really unsettled. But I'm petty. Not the jerk for getting one chicken. Soft, you're the jerk for only having one. Get some more. They are very social creatures. HOA tried to punish us, told us to stop them if we can. This happened several years ago. We installed cameras in front of our home that were looking at our vehicles. Part of the camera angles did overlook part of two neighbors' properties, one backyard and one side yard. The cameras were battery operated and had a function where you could gray out areas that you didn't want to film. When motion occurred in the grayed out areas, the cameras would not be activated to film. The neighbors' entire properties and several bushes on our property were grayed out. We did this when installing them. One of the neighbors was a friend and had no issues with this whatsoever. We showed her the camera angle, and she said she didn't care whether or not we grayed out that area. We still left it grayed out over battery life concerns. The other neighbor's name was Karen. Not really, but we all know why I chose that name. Karen was on the HOA board. As you can imagine, we didn't get along with Karen or the HOA board. We told Karen about the camera and showed her the grayed out areas at the same time that we told our friendly neighbor about it. It was simply an FYI conversation. We're not on friendly terms, not an asking permission conversation. She told us to take the cameras down immediately or we would regret it. About a week after we hung the camera up, we got a notice from our HOA that we were violating the bylaws. The bylaw in question? A nuisance to your neighbors bylaw. There wasn't a specific bylaw preventing placement of the cameras, so this is all they could find to try and punish us. We responded with a letter detailing how we were not violating any bylaws or laws in general, and we asked them to cease and desist. We all know how these stories go though. They did not cease, and they certainly did not desist. Their first response? The HOA has the right to enforce these bylaws. Try to stop us if you think you can. These types of responses were, unfortunately, quite common from this board. We entered this battle with one goal in mind, to cost them as much money and time as possible. The HOA hired a lawyer specifically to fight us. To my knowledge, this has not happened to any other residents. In the following 4 months, we ended up costing the HOA over $4,000 in lawyers' fees fighting this battle. For reference, the entire HOA income was $25,000 a year. When it came time for our official HOA hearing over the matter, we had successfully postponed it, thanks to an attorney friend, 3 separate times. There were over 100 back and forth emails with the HOA attorney and ourselves. Each one of those emails was a 15-minute expense from the HOA. And I was happy to follow up a follow-up question with another follow-up question if it meant the HOA attorney was going to keep billing them. Did I say follow up enough times? We didn't actually want to take this battle to court, so we ended up removing the cameras the day of the hearing to prevent being fined, even if the fine wouldn't hold up in court. The HOA decided in the hearing that we were guilty, surprise, surprise, of violating the bylaw. They couldn't fine us, as the bylaws don't allow a fine until after a hearing has been held, and the cameras were already removed. In the end, the punishment was a sternly written piece of paper on the attorney's letterhead, delivered via certified mail, that stated that we were not allowed to place a camera on our home that had the potential to invade a neighbor's privacy. Keep in mind, the letter specifically stated the camera could not be placed on our home. We left the cameras off the home for about 4 months, until the annual HOA meeting. You should have seen the look on the HOA board's faces when I asked them to explain the $4,000 line item for attorney's fees that simply stated title searches and attorney fees. The board actually tried to hide the fact that they spent $4,000 trying to fight us over a couple of cameras by putting the fees in as title searches. Needless to say, that meeting did not go well for them. About half of them lost their positions on the board. The other half, including Karen unfortunately, remained on the board. About a week after the annual meeting, we installed new cameras, facing the same direction as the prior cameras. Only this time, we installed a post in the ground and mounted the cameras to the post. The admonishment we received after the hearing specifically stated that we were not allowed to install cameras on our home and said nothing about putting them on a post. They did send a letter to try to tell us to remove the cameras, but a sternly worded response indicating that we were prepared to fight them actually worked this time around. I guess they didn't want to spend another $4,000 fighting us. We didn't receive any follow-up responses, and the cameras on the post are still installed to this day, over 2 years and running strong. My son's girlfriend is hogging up all of our water. My husband thinks I'm in the right, but my niece helped me make this post to help see what other people think. I, 52 female, have 3 sons, ages ranging from 13 to 20. My oldest son, who's 20, has a girlfriend who's 19 that hangs around our house a lot. It's a really small house and doesn't have a lot of space. She's a nice girl, but gets on my nerves sometimes because she's always over. I really don't think she's right for my son either. Our tap water has a weird aftertaste, so I order gallon water bottles and use them to refill a big glass bowl with a tap. It is not cheap to get water and other groceries delivered, so I tell my sons, husband, and the girlfriend to be courteous of the other people who live here and not use up the water as it runs out fast in our big household. Yesterday, I caught her filling up her big metal water bottle with the jug water, and I calmly told her that other people live here too, and she shouldn't hog the water all to herself. She was rather short with me and said something along the lines of, "Actually, this water bottle is big enough to hold all the water someone should be drinking in a day. I'm not hogging water, I'm just trying to stay hydrated." I found her tone to be disrespectful and ordered her to leave. She scoffed and went back to my son's room. That's when I really got frustrated. I opened the door and told her she has to leave. My son got really angry with me and told me that his girlfriend didn't do anything wrong, and why is it a crime for her to drink water? I explained that I order this water for our family to use, not leeches who hang around all day rent-free. My son's girlfriend got a little teary-eyed and left the room and went out the front door without saying anything. My son told me that I was a major jerk and I should have just minded my own business. I think she's just wasteful and a brat. Am I the jerk? Okay, you're the jerk, but I'm going to try to explain why in a constructive way so that hopefully you understand all sides of this. First of all, you have the right to lay down the law of your land in your house. That includes who is in it, who's using your supplies, how they're used, and what conduct you expect from guests. Your guests, including your son, also have the basic human right to take offense at your hostility. Nobody likes to be treated like a burden or an imposition. And you've put this girl in a difficult situation where she feels like in order to enjoy her boyfriend, she has to put up with your antagonism, justified or not. That's exhausting for everyone. The fact is that you're 52 and she's 19, and as the owner of your house, you need to be the one who communicates your desires clearly, not passive-aggressively. You're trying to play both sides by subtly driving her away with your antagonism while also not giving your son cause to be angry with you. The absolute kindest way I can put this is that what you're doing right now is reactionary communication instead of preemptive communication. You clearly have a problem with this girl and everybody knows it. By being passive-aggressive and at times openly hostile to her in order to drive her away, you're disrespecting your son's choice and trying to impose your will on him. This isn't about the water, it's about you wanting her out of your house, and because you're not clearly putting down boundaries, these little things are adding up and blowing over. She's 19 and likely doesn't understand why you're so hostile. If you would rather not have her in your house all the time, communicate that with her. Tell her it's stressing you out to have guests over all the time and that you're feeling claustrophobic. There are many direct, mature ways you can handle this situation, but it starts with you, not her. You're the one with the problem. Edit. I wanted to respond to one comment I keep seeing popping up. Which person OP should be taking her complaints to? Her son or his girlfriend? To be honest, when I reread the post, the proprietary tone OP took when speaking about him, I don't think she's right for him, suggested a couple of things to me. Her methods with communicating with her sons are outdated, and new adult boundaries need to be drawn so that they can coexist in a healthy way. And the value she places in their relationship is preventing her from expressing her frustrations honestly. She doesn't mind her son being there in that small space, she minds his girlfriend. In an either-or situation where she forces him to choose, she might not like the choice he makes. Instead of taking that risk, she settled for a passive-aggressive antagonism that pressure-cooked the situation up to a point where everything exploded over boiling water. My first paying job, and the person thought they would be clever paying me. I've always been interested in electronics and did a lot of reading and studying on my own, and I was very good at buying things at swap meets and repairing them and reselling them as a teen. My first real paying job, a friend of my mom knew a guy who ran a place that supplied answering machines to businesses. They were new tech back at that point in time. He said he was desperate for someone who could fix them as he had ones with issues spilling over the shelves, so I went to see him. It was an interesting meeting, a middle-aged businessman and me. I was 15 or so. We kind of eye each other, and he asks me if I can fix them. I was pretty sure I could, and when he pulled out the service manuals for them, he had a couple that were based on the same base. I was quite sure. So he asked me what I wanted an hour, and I was used to getting $3 an hour for watching the kiddo next door on occasion, so I asked for that. He pondered that for a minute and made me an offer that I could not refuse. $10 cash for each one I fix. I quickly agreed and agreed to stop by after school the next day with my tools to dig in. The next day I show up and he takes me in the back, and sure enough, he has a couple of big sets of industrial shelves overflowing with the things. I start pulling them off and looking at them. He gives me a smile and drifts off and leaves me to it. I quickly discovered this guy had no tech skills whatsoever. None. Most of them had a brainlessly simple problem. The outgoing message was kept on a big loose loop of tape with a metallic splice at the end. It was a pretty simple problem. The splices and the posts got dirty and did not make good contact, and the tape would just go on forever. About 3 minutes with some alcohol and a Q-tip cleaning those parts, as well as the other things in the tape path, not only had them going again, but sounding like new. I cleaned the front panels up with some spray cleaner and hit the wooden cases with some lemon pledge, and they would look like new. I spent more time carefully coiling up the power cords than repairing them, but when I was done, they looked and sounded like new. The owner came back to check on me a few hours later to see if I was going to be able to crank one out for him that night, and I pointed to a pile of 5 or so, and I told him to check them out. His eyes just about popped out of his head. I got nearly 10 done a night for a while. It did slow down a bit once I got the easy ones knocked out, but I just kept picking the low-hanging fruit and learning more and more about them and getting deeper and deeper into them. He also had units coming in all the time, so I did still have some easy ones mixed in with the bunch. I thought he was going to lose it when we settled up at the end of the first week. I had spent like 3 afternoons there and got near 30 of them fixed. It was a really good payday. He was not super happy with our agreement, but he had proposed it and he had someone who was kicking butt getting them fixed, so he was cornered into honoring it. It was not lost on him that he could have been paying me like $12 a night, and I would have been happy with that, but he thought he would get the better of me. Am I the jerk for not helping my wife and the kids when she wanted to keep them home from daycare and I have to work? So my wife and I have 2 kids, one who's a bit over 2 years old and the other is 5 months old. I work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 at home. Occasionally I go into the office. My wife is on maternity leave and taking care of the 5-month-old. I take care of the baby for overnights, walkings, and feedings. The 2-year-old is in daycare. Whether I send my kid to daycare 1 day or 5 days a week for 1 hour or 8, it costs the same. My wife likes to pick up our toddler from daycare around 3:15 every day instead of letting me go when I finish work because she doesn't want our kid to be there so much during the day. The problem is, I'm left watching the baby for the 45 minutes while she's gone, and then for the hour that she's taking care of both of them, she gets overwhelmed, stressed, very annoyed at me and our kids. It's just not great overall. Every day, my wife tells me that she's exhausted. She has no time to herself. She doesn't get things done that she needs to. She's overwhelmed, just wants to relax when the baby naps, etc. I try to help out with the baby during the day when I can, like feeding and putting him down during my lunch break. I just try to be available throughout the day if my wife needs me. Anyways, on to the main point of this post. Last night, my wife tells me she wants to keep the toddler home from daycare today. I tell her that I didn't think that was a good idea. How is she going to feed and put down the baby for a nap while taking care of the toddler? She already gets stressed and overwhelmed just looking after the baby. Why put herself through more stress? I told her that I could not take the day off of work and she would be alone taking care of both kids. She said she really wanted to spend time with both kids and felt like she didn't see our toddler enough. Fine, no problem. If she wants to do this, it's up to her. I reiterated that I would not be around to help. Cut to this morning. I got up at midnight and 4 a.m. to take care of the baby. I get both kids ready and I made breakfast for everyone. I start work, and sure enough, 20 minutes after I started, I hear my wife trying to tell our toddler that she just needs to go in the other room and put the baby down for a nap. Of course, the toddler doesn't want to leave her side. Toddler starts crying. I can hear my wife getting frustrated. Wife finally leaves to put the baby down and comes back. She now has to juggle going back and forth trying to settle the baby by putting the pacifier back in. We're starting some sleep training. And the toddler who wants all of her attention. Finally, baby gets settled. Wife is obviously stressed and tired, and it's 9:45 a.m. She comes into my office where I'm working and asks, did I not hear her struggling? Why did I not come and help? Am I the jerk for telling my wife, I told you so? That I said I would not be around to help, and this is what you get? That she should have let me bring our toddler to daycare? Not the jerk. You have set your wife up for success, and she's choosing to fail. Listen, I don't have kids for a reason, and I absolutely appreciate how much work kids are. But your wife's struggle seems excessive. Lots of people take care of 2 kids at once, and they don't have meltdowns. And then, she doesn't even have to take care of 2 kids at once. And the one day she chooses to do so, she can't even make it 4 hours. Time for a sit-down. She's on leave to take care of the kids. The toddler has daycare so she doesn't get overwhelmed. She needs to come up with a system and stick to it, and it can't involve interrupting your work. Your work is the current thing keeping a roof over your head and providing for the family. And there's no reason you should stop work to help her with problems she's creating herself. I can't find much sympathy for her at all. My mom raised me and my sister, who were 2 years apart, and she often took care of my cousins as well. Your wife needs to get it together. No jerks here. Your wife is suffering from mom guilt, which is a societal pressure to do everything all at once with a smile and high efficiency. It's ridiculous and unreasonable, but still a valid emotion that you might understand as well. Instead of the complete logical approach of trying to prove your point, take into consideration that your youngest isn't even 5 months, so hormones and stress are playing a part in this. Talk to your wife to see how to handle this as a team. Offer some empathy and see if she'll open up about why she wants to keep putting this pressure on herself. Remind her that she's the backbone of the house, and if she's stressed and overwhelmed, then things crumble. Give her space to take care of herself so she can be the best mom she wants to be. But if you do the "I told you so" game, it will cause resentment all around, and everyone loses. Am I the jerk for telling my son he's delusional to think that I'll approve of his marriage? My son, who's 25, introduced me to his fiancée, Sarah, who's 20. He informed me yesterday that he was going to marry her. He's dated her for about 7 months in total. I was introduced to her 2 months ago. I'll say outright, I don't like Sarah. She's messy, and by messy, I mean she looks like she lives in a dumpster. Rude. She'll go off on you when you eat the last of the chocolate, even if it's your own chocolate, because she wanted it. She did this to my daughter. I saw it with my own eyes. She's wasteful and quite conceited. My son and her are banned from family gatherings after a particular incident. I've told my son the truth about it when he asked for my honest opinion after I met her. But in the end, he's an adult, and I don't control his life. When he told me about the engagement, he asked me, since it's been 2 months, if I approve of her now. I laughed a bit and told him, no, I don't. And he got mad and asked me why. So I gave him the following reasons. 1. They're 20 and 25 and getting married, which I think is a bit too early since they've known each other for around 7 months. 2. Neither of them have a stable income or know how to cook and clean, so they're hitting a disaster zone. 3. They're not going to have a prenup. 4. Again, I don't like her. But again, I told him he's an adult, so it's his choice. I also told him they were going to have to move out because I have 3 other kids to look after, and Sarah is not at all nice or kind to them, and I won't support him and Sarah, just if they're in an emergency. Right now, I fully pay for and house him. He pays no rent, and he has a part-time job, and his monthly salary, if they budgeted, will give them more than enough for essentials plus savings. Sarah owns her own apartment, so no rent. Plus, I'm fully paying for his college, so no loans to worry about. But other than that, they have to figure out something themselves. I also told him not to expect me to pay for his wedding because A, they want an extravagant one, and B, With the cost of living rising, I want to save enough money to make sure my youngest, who's in 8th grade right now, will have the same opportunity as him. He got mad at me and left. I recounted this to a few of my coworkers, and they think I'm in the wrong. So I've come here to ask some strangers. Am I wrong? You're the jerk. You're working hard at making your son kick you out of his life. The only positive thing here is that he will be free of you much earlier than without that. I'm sick of being screamed at by entitled people that don't get their way. So my boss has us not seat anyone past a quarter to close. From that point until 5 minutes to close, we are to go only. After that, we're essentially closed, but we make exceptions, especially if someone comes in at the last minute and just wants like a cup of soup or some meatballs or something of the like. Monday night, it's 8:48. We close at 9. 3 people come inside, and I immediately tell them that we are to go only. We aren't seating anymore for the night. Pretty much everything except the floors are done, and the kitchen is 2/3 of the way done cleaning up. Anyway, it's 2 women and 1 guy. The first woman is the main aggressor here. She starts trying to barter with us to let her sit, essentially, before going nuclear. Well, why can't we sit? There's people still in here. Me. Ma'am, all the people in here are finished eating and about to leave. Stuff like that. I proceed to tell her I'm sorry. It's not my rule. Our boss doesn't want us sitting until the last minute because we're a local place. And he doesn't want to have to pay the entire staff for over an hour after close because you decided you can't go out to eat until 10 minutes before the restaurant closes. This woman literally stomps her foot and starts throwing a tantrum like a kid. This is BS. I work in restaurants. Nowhere else does this. There are still people in here. You should let us sit anyway. The other woman in the group is peppering her friend's tirade with insults and screams of her own. This is horrible service. How dare you not seat us? I offered them to go like 6 times, but it wasn't good enough. This entire time I'm staying calm and apologizing. It's not my rule. I'm not doing this just to be rude. They go to stomp out the door, and they hilariously try to slam the door, which has the thing that makes it shut slowly because it's glass. I don't know if that made them madder or what. As the door starts to shut, I'm ashamed to admit I lost my patience again and I snapped at them without raising my voice. You don't need to be so rude. A guy comes to grab his to-go, and she screams in his face. They're refusing to sit us. They're to-go only, so I hope you don't want to sit and eat. They wouldn't let us sit. The poor guy just shrinks away and comes inside. The lady's friend comes back to the door and opens it again. We're never coming back here, she shrieks into the restaurant. I feel bad for all the customers still in the restaurant. They all just think this lady is nuts. After they leave, I lose it a little and kind of started to break down in front of my coworker. I'm so sick of all these people screaming at me for stuff that isn't my fault or that I didn't do. I went outside and called my mom and cried. I've been doing this for over 10 years, and I've never had so many rude customers the entire time I've been doing this as I have in the last 3 months. Can someone please tell me what's going on? Am I the jerk for telling my nephew he is his father's only heir? Recently, my older brother passed. At that time, he had become engaged to a woman he had only rekindled a relationship with 4 months prior and after having been apart for more than 20 years. Prior to my brother's passing, he had become upset with my nephew, his only child, for failing to return 2 phone messages and voiced his frustration to our mother and stepfather. On the day he passed, our mother was extremely cruel in how she told my nephew that this had happened. She even bragged to me about it and reenacted her conversation with my nephew before exclaiming that she was less than warm about it. She also informed my nephew that the fiancé was going to inherit everything, but asked if there was anything of my brother's that my nephew wanted. My mother lied to my nephew. My brother passed without a will, which means my nephew inherits everything and all decisions are his to be made. I told my mother that's the law in our state, but my mother stated emphatically that my nephew wasn't getting anything, along with my stepfather claiming that my brother told him he could have my brother's money. Another lie. I was absolutely disgusted by what my mother and stepfather said and immediately left their home and haven't been back. Over the next few days, I tried in vain to reason with my mother, but she would not back down from trying to give all of my brother's money and possessions to the fiancé and ensuring that my nephew only received a few token pieces of my brother's estate. So I made the decision to tell my nephew the truth. Now my mother, stepfather, and brother's fiancé are furious with me and said that I had no right and should have stayed out of the situation. Telling my nephew the truth has caused a huge rift within my family, and I feel responsible. I fear my actions may have created a bigger issue that my family may not be able to overcome. If I had asked an attorney to explain the law to my mother or taken a more diplomatic course of action, we might have been able to grieve my brother's passing as a family. Instead, neither I nor my nephew was informed of my brother's memorial service and only learned of it after it had taken place. At this point, I no longer communicate with my mother and stepfather, which seems to be the case with most of the extended family. Am I the jerk for taking matters into my own hands and destroying what was left of my grieving family? You may have prevented your mother from committing fraud and going to jail. The only way you are a jerk is if you waited too long to notify an attorney of what's going on so that they can get something in place to stop her, and anything given away cannot be recovered. Your mom is a piece of work. I can't imagine anything a grandson could do that would make me be cruel to him the way that your mother was. Not the jerk. Stay-at-home partner wants me to help with the baby, but I work 100 hours a week. I know the title sounds bad, but I'm finding myself in a very difficult situation, and I'm genuinely not sure if I'm in the wrong here. I, 27 male, am a surgical resident. My partner, 27 female, was a teacher, but is currently a stay-at-home mother to our newborn child. We met in college and have been together for just over 7 years now. Last year, she took a pregnancy test and found out that she was pregnant. We were both happy, but also concerned about taking care of a child. My main concern when we found out was that I could not help out with the kid because I work between 80 to 100 hours a week. However, we both love each other and did want a family, so in the end, we decided to keep it, and then she would take time off of work while I was completing my residency and take care of the baby. I would complete my residency, and then, after having somewhat more humane hours, I would obviously split child-caring duties equally with her so that she can also return to work. It's been 3 months since our kid was born now, and things have been rough to say the least. I'm still working nearly 100 hours a week, and I'm constantly at the brink of exhaustion. If anything, my workload has increased since then, as I'm now learning how to perform larger operations. My sleep is almost non-existent, and I'm constantly under intense pressure due to my work environment. Things have obviously been rough for her too. The pregnancy and delivery were without complication, but it goes without saying that it was still hugely taxing on her mentally and physically. Recently, my partner has been asking me to take care of our kid when I get home. Initially, I helped her without hesitation, feeling like it was within my capacity and wanting to support her. But in the past few weeks, she's been asking more and more of me, and a few days ago, she demanded I take care of our kid immediately as I walked into the door. I hadn't even had time to take off my shoes yet, and when I said, "Just give me a second," she told me to hurry up. I later learned that she had an incredibly rough day and was just at capacity, but in the moment, I was so caught off guard, I yelled back at her to back off. I was too exhausted to deal with it then, so I locked myself in the bathroom to take a long shower and calm down. We later talked about what had happened and apologized to each other, but during it, she essentially told me that she felt like I wasn't doing enough to take care of the kid and that it was our responsibility equally. I told her that I felt like I was already doing more than we agreed on and that I can literally not do any more than what I am currently doing. After talking and arguing about this for about 2 hours, we still couldn't come to an agreement and decided to leave the topic for now. So, am I the jerk for not wanting to take on a larger parenting role during residency? Friends I've talked to seem split on the matter. Not the jerk. This is a case of two people drowning and arguing over who has their head up out of the water a few inches more than the other. You have a newborn, you're working 100 hours a week, and a wife who is most likely so overwhelmed she can't see straight. Both of you are sleep deprived and not in your right mind. What you need is help. I don't care who said they would do what before the baby came. It's here now, and it's not what either of you expected. It's time to start from scratch and use your limited energy to find solutions to give you both reprieve. This right here. No one in this situation is the jerk. They're just both exhausted, doing very taxing and demanding jobs and tasks and need help. I know OP said they can't afford help right now, but they both need to figure out something before this tears them apart. Call for reinforcements. Get a cleaning lady or a person once a week to deal with the household chores, vacuuming, dusting, doing some laundry, ironing, scrubbing bathrooms, well worth the money. Call in grandma or family and friends if possible to watch the baby while wife can just have a nap and maybe even have someone to visit with. or find a responsible teenager who has experience with babies who can come over a few hours a week and watch the baby or watch TV while wife catches a nap. If childcare options are really good, try to allow your wife to escape child-free for a few hours to the gym, yoga, dance, or whatever that may allow her a bit of child-free physical activity that can help reset her mental and physical health. Being home with a baby is tough. Try to find a few hours each week for you as a couple or family, even if it's just to meet for lunch, if possible. Arrange for groceries to be bought online and delivered. Walmart Click and Collect can be picked up by an Uber or a taxi and delivered to the door. Some grocery stores deliver. Find out what system works. Encourage your wife to find other moms in the same position. Having a support system with other parents or babies allows her to actually visit someone who doesn't mind if baby tags along and cries the whole time. Plus, as the kids get older, it allows them to have other kids in their lives. And offer your wife the opportunity to put baby in childcare and go back to work. Not every person is cut out to be at home with their kids 24/7. Doesn't mean she's a bad parent, but she re-energizes by outside of home interaction. Not the jerk. You're both in a hard situation, but you can get through it. Don't be afraid to call for reinforcements. Also, check with the hospital you're doing a residency at. Do they have a childcare program that you could use? Even part-time? Or can they recommend one? Just start brainstorming ideas with your wife on how to make this work. Write down good ideas and some absolutely silly ones too. It actually will help even if you are met with glares. Then after you have tons of ideas, serious and ridiculous, you go through the ideas together and start crossing some off to narrow down the list. Don't narrow it down too much. You want plans A through E because sometimes plans change. And try to agree to help your wife figure out what she needs at this point to be happy and how you both can make it work. Good luck, OP. Karen demands my asthma inhaler. So the story goes, me, my friend, and our significant others planned a road trip for a couple days. We all had 3 months to plan ahead. For context, my friend's boyfriend and I have asthma. My asthma is so severe that I have disabled parking and an SDIT. I don't know how severe his is, but I feel it's relevant to add that he smokes. Almost every time we all hang out, he asks to use my inhalers, and I give them to him without a second thought. Before we left for the trip, I let my friend know that I didn't have the means to be sharing my inhalers with him. As you've probably already guessed, he asked to use one of my inhalers on the last day of the trip. I gave him one of them to use, and I thought nothing of it until last night, 3 weeks later. So my friend comes to me and she says that as her friend, I could have at least given him a few puffs off my inhaler. I told her that she was coming across as selfish for being upset with me over the inhalers that I rely on and pay for, and I didn't understand how she had any place to be upset when I literally shared my inhaler when he asked. She said that the inhaler that I shared with him wasn't my rescue inhaler, and therefore didn't help him, and she had to watch him suffer on the way home because of it. Asthma medicine shortage aside, I really just don't understand how I was wrong for being concerned about my health too. I love her and we've been friends for a long time, but I just don't see how I was wrong for giving him one inhaler over the other when he didn't even bother to specify which one he wanted. So, am I the jerk for not giving him my rescue inhaler? Edit. A couple of things to add. I know it's not sanitary. I disinfect the inhalers every time they get used. I know you're not supposed to share things like this. It's just not easy to tell someone, hey, I know you can't breathe that great, but I can't give you something that may or may not help you. They've been together for around 3 years and they have kids together. I made sure to establish that I will not be sharing my inhalers with him or anyone else ever again. I haven't yet, but I will be establishing that our friendship is either done or on a break until they learn to appreciate the things I do for them, including, but not limited to, putting their health over mine. There's been a few people who have wondered why I gave him one inhaler over the rescue, even though he never specified. Since this was a while ago, I don't fully remember the details, but I think it was in the morning and I'm not a morning person. I also have ADHD, so my daily is next to me at night, so I remember to take it in the morning. It was the inhaler that was closest to me, and I wasn't in the mood to put forth the effort to get my rescue inhaler out of my purse or duffel bag. Maybe I was being subconsciously passive-aggressive, I understand that now. Maybe everyone's the jerk in this situation, but my conclusion is this. It's just as much my responsibility to take care of my health as it is his responsibility to take care of his. I would never just let my friend get hurt, but I can do that without putting my life at risk too. Thank you all, you've been a great help. Your asthma requires disabled parking. His asthma allows him to smoke. You are not the same. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Honestly, you need to cut this friend out of your life immediately. She's more worried about her jerk boyfriend's suffering than about your very life. Doctors don't issue prescriptions for rescue inhalers for funsies. They do it because you could literally get hurt if you have bad asthma attacks. She may have been your friend for a long time, but our actions always show our true values more than any words. Her actions scream, "I don't care if you could get hurt from an asthma attack, as long as my boyfriend is okay." Clearly, her boyfriend's asthma is not serious enough for a doctor to prescribe him a rescue inhaler. Or he doesn't care since he smokes all the time, which is the worst thing you can do with asthma. It's not your job to keep her boyfriend from suffering. Drop the jerk friend and her equally jerk boyfriend. He's a jerk for smoking, etc., while he has asthma and relying on other people to give him rescue inhalers. My daughter expects me to pay for her college, and I don't know what to do. I, 52 male, have 2 kids, a son who's 26 and a daughter who's 19. When my son went to college, I thought college would open up opportunities and he was supposed to major in computer science, but he failed a bunch of classes and changed his major to something less lucrative. He went out of state, and I now realize that this was a poor investment. I didn't want to make the same mistakes with my daughter. She also wants to do computer science, and last year she got into a foreign university in the UK, which she says is like Stanford over there, Cambridge. I didn't want the same thing to happen to her, so I told her that I can't help her pay for that and to go to a local state university or community college, then transfer. She ended up not going and deferred her admission to see if this year she can get a loan, which I'm not for, but it is her life, or if she can get a scholarship for a better American college. She seems a little annoyed at me since effectively her brother got more money, but that was before I knew better. I can afford the same for her, but it would be tighter now, and I don't want that same thing to happen, especially if it would be for a foreign degree. I suspect the same could happen to her since her brother was typically the brighter one, while she just pushed herself the last years of school. Am I the jerk here? You're the jerk. Gee, my daughter wants to go to one of the top universities in the world, but she's not the smart one, and since my son couldn't hack it, clearly she won't either. Good luck maintaining that relationship. You made her give up Cambridge when you could have given her the money as you did with her brother? And you're even asking if you're the jerk? Of course you're the jerk. And even saying your older kid was the brighter one and she doesn't deserve the same amount of money because it's sure she's gonna fail? OMG, what a jerk. You're the jerk. If she gets into Cambridge, you should pay. It's a lot cheaper than Stanford. And you should not punish her for her brother's mistakes, for goodness sake. Community college is not at all like Cambridge. You sound quite ignorant on top of being the jerk. Such a jerk. So you're punishing her because of his poor choices? Also, you're essentially saying she's the dumber one. I'm guessing she's more than a little annoyed with you. Lastly, people who push themselves frequently fare better than those who are born brighter. You're the jerk. Don't you realize that Cambridge, UK is one of the most prestigious universities in the world? It's very hard to get in, so your daughter must be really talented. And you can afford it, but denied it to her because her brother was not a success? A Cambridge degree is one of the best investments there is. And by the way, your kids are not investments. Buy some stock or real estate if you want to invest. Shame on you, OP. Not the jerk. I'm sorry all of these kids on Reddit who know nothing about finances are laying into you for your rational decision making. If it were up to them, everything would be handed to them for free by their parents. Sadly, these kids are a part of a generation who feel entitled to handouts. As a successful landlord and investor myself, with a master's in personal finance and a background in investment banking, everything you're saying here makes perfect sense and is very logical. No matter how bright or not so bright your daughter is, all kids should start at a community college to make sure they can hack it. You'll end up paying a fraction of the price you would for a major university. You've also learned this lesson with your son. If you repeat this mistake, then that's on you. If she proves she's college material, which no, getting accepted into a school does not automatically mean you can hack it there, then after 2 years she can transfer and you'll pay for wherever she wants to go. Super simple, and what any parent who's planning to pay for their child's college education should be doing. A valuable lesson I've learned through life is that you never want to go with the flow and do what everyone else is doing and recommending. That's how you end up like all of these lost, confused, angry, and miserable losers on Reddit. Never let these morons influence your decisions with their idiocracy. This site is nothing but a competition for upvotes. and the way you get them is by making yourself appear as relatable as possible to the rest of these morons. AKA, despise people who are financially successful and or who have actual morals. Speaking common sense will get you nothing but dislikes, which is why that's all I ever get on here. Unless we're on a finance or investment subreddit. For some reason, I actually get more upvotes than most others on there. Gee, it's almost as if the people who actually take the time to educate themselves on how money actually works tend to have more common sense than the rest of the idiots here on Reddit. Whoever would have thought that? Man loses it when he has to wait 5 minutes for valet. So I work the night audit shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. This is one of my favorite stories because of the karmic justice was hilarious at the end. I deal with a crazy amount of problems because I work at a 4-star luxury hotel that's also in the middle of a downtown city and connected to a convention center. I literally deal with everyone, from the homeless to celebrities. This isn't my craziest story, but the funniest when it comes to instant karma. So most of my problems usually happen right at the beginning of my shift. It's when late check-ins start finishing up, but only with the drunk and the rowdy and the occasional late flight. This man was of the drunk and rowdy nature. He was middle-aged, looked like your typical Marvel fan from the shorts, the shirt, the beard, and the glasses. Reeked of neckbeard. We all know the type. I'm a nerd too, but the kind that showers and has friends and boundaries. I don't work alone, but was alone at the front desk. I'm 26, female, and he comes up to me to complain. He's checking in and stating valet wasn't there and he's been waiting for 20 minutes. I call valet and find out that he's only been waiting for 5 and assure him that they're finishing up with a couple guests and will park his car. He would not let it go. He starts going on a rant about my terrible customer service, how there has to be something I should do for him to make up for this, how completely unacceptable it is that he had to wait at all for a luxury hotel valet and thought that was the whole point of us being luxury. Clearly hasn't been to a hotel in general, never mind a nice one. I told him I talked to the valet, and it's normal for people to have to wait for others who were there first. There was nothing I could do. It wasn't even an amount of time that I could fake being sympathetic for. He was clearly just a jerk. He then keeps demanding an explanation from me as to why he was waiting, now trying to tell me I'm lying to him, and they were clearly sleeping or on break. He then tells me to just cancel his reservation. I said okay. The valet was ready for you, but if this isn't what you needed, I will go ahead and cancel. So I do, and I hand him the printed cancellation. He still won't leave. Now he's standing at the front desk staring me down and repeatedly asking me why he had to wait for valet and to admit that they were sleeping. I tell him he no longer has a reservation with us, and I will call security to escort him out as he is no longer a guest. He says fine. So I call security and he still won't leave. Starts yelling at them that he won't leave unless we call the cops. Man literally asked us to call the cops on him. He then looked at me and was like, "You're not gonna win this, you know." Me not even knowing there was something to win here. So cops get there, they come up to me just to ask what's going on, and they feel bad because they know the dude is just being a jerk. I tell them he literally told us to call the cops to make him leave. Cops go deal with him. They tell him not only are we not reinstating his reservation, which I guess he was trying to get them to do, but he had to call an Uber home and had to abandon his car at the hotel because he was too drunk to drive. The cops literally made him call an Uber in front of them and get into it and watch him leave. So this dude clearly had some sort of power struggle thing going on. He thought he could just pick on some random hotel worker and instead got the biggest walk of shame I've ever seen. And also he had to pay for an Uber, a cancellation fee, and who knows what else to get his car back. All just to be a smug jerk. It was great. Now I just wish all the jerks got a police escort. Am I the jerk for announcing my pregnancy immediately after my sister? Husband and I have been trying for our second baby for 2.5 years. I'm incredibly grateful to now be 13 weeks pregnant and have been looking forward to sharing that news with my family. On Friday, we had dinner with my family, my sister, her boyfriend, and our parents, and we decided to share our news then. I decided to wait until dessert so that we could leave shortly after telling everyone. Obviously, it's exciting news, but I was worried about all the emotions that could surface for myself and my husband. Right after we sat down to eat, my sister announced that she and her boyfriend are expecting their first child. I was thrilled for her and congratulated her, as did the rest of the family. Once things had settled down, I didn't want to waste the opportunity to have everyone together and thought it would be a good opportunity to keep the joy flowing, so I shared that I'm pregnant as well. Our parents were so excited to be having 2 new grandbabies just a month apart, and I was super happy that my kids would have a new cousin. My sister was happy for me, but she left very soon after dinner and didn't stay for dessert. She called me this afternoon and told me that as happy as she was for me, she felt that I had done a crappy thing by taking away her moment. She pointed out that this is my second baby, and when I announced for the first time, I didn't have to share with anyone. I didn't want to apologize because I didn't feel I'd done anything wrong, but she finished out the phone call by saying that she didn't think I was really even happy for her if I couldn't have let her have that moment and taken another for myself later on. That really stung. I truly didn't see it that way. I saw it as sharing joy, not stealing it. I also see each pregnancy as being unique, so I don't feel that it was right of her to say I shouldn't have said anything because it was my second baby. Honestly, I think she might be kind of hormonal, but I also want to understand my sister, and I know I'm not going to get anywhere asking her about it. So I want to be enlightened. Am I the jerk for announcing my pregnancy immediately after my sister? ETA. I'm visiting from Los Angeles. My sister lives in New Jersey, and our parents live in New York City. So here's the real truth. It doesn't actually matter who's the jerk, because that's going to be an inherently subjective matter that depends on your personal views of how pregnancy announcement should go. What's important here is that your sister is upset, and you don't have to understand why. So swallow your pride and apologize to her. You're the jerk for exactly what she said. You could have waited for a different day, and I don't think it's bad that she wanted to be in the spotlight a little bit. Like she said, it was her first baby, and she wanted people to be happy that they're having a kid. With that said, disregarding her emotions as her just being hormonal is kind of mean. Did you see her edit though? She flew across the country to see them, LA to New York, and might not get another chance in person. I still think she could have done it on a different day or time instead of during the dinner. Also, personally, and this is probably affecting my decision, but I don't think it has to be in person. She should have let her sister have a moment in the spotlight. This greed for attention is getting way out of hand. Your sister does not need or deserve an entire day of attention from everyone just because she managed to conceive a kid. Everyone is happy for her. That should be enough. Her jealousy of you also having a pregnancy to celebrate is childish, ridiculous, and narcissistic. You're not the jerk. For sure. I don't understand this attitude at all. I would have been thrilled if one of my sisters had been pregnant at the same time as me. It would have been a blast. Also, the attention hog thing will totally still be fed throughout the sister's pregnancy. Her parents, in-laws, etc. will still fuss over her like crazy. The attention is not limited to the time of the announcement. Not the jerk. You're the jerk for reducing your sister's feelings to, she might be kinda hormonal. That's very dismissive, and you have the same hormones going on right now too. Announcing right after your sister wasn't the worst thing, but it would have been much more considerate to wait at least a day. Let her have one night of feeling special. Have a family dinner the next weekend and announce. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know. Why can't OP's sister just be happy for her? People make way too big a deal of being the center of attention and getting the spotlight. I can't imagine how OP's sister was during her wedding. One by one. I was recently reminded of this story from a colleague. I work in contracts, meaning my department audits signed documents to make sure everything is legal and compliant with our policies. We have a very old system that we use. Think early DOS. Like a black screen with white words and you type everything manually. Looks like Pong. So typically what happens is, I would get a contract for specific mechanical equipment and I would review to make sure it's possible in a physical sense and that the finances also make sense. Occasionally, we will encounter a situation where we need to update our system to allow a contract to go through. This would be if we sold an older equipment that we no longer build but had a few spare parts lying around. Or if a client bought our equipment from a third-party provider but wants us to service it since we're the official company that makes this stuff. It's kind of like a car dealership selling a used car that they don't make anymore. It's still part of their brand, but they might not necessarily have software to support it since it's so outdated. Trying to explain as best I can. When we have these types of contracts with older equipment, all we have to do is send a note to a person in a specific department and ask her to open the system temporarily to allow these devices to be added and serviced. The way we send this request is that we fill out a form and we submit it to this lady. This lady is something. She's a combination of a power-hungry overlord and a scared, pathetic mouse. It's very interesting to see. I sometimes play a game to bet on which mode she will respond with. She's very much a bully who cries when she gets called out for being a bully and then says she's being bullied. Yeah, she's fun. So anyways, one day I received 85 new contracts, same client, all for used equipment that we don't make anymore and have not for years. Someone found a whole bunch of them for dirt cheap and bought them, and now they want us to service them. Cool. Good find, Mr. Client. We will be happy to help. Typically, you submit one request form per device. Filling out this form is a bit of a pain because it's a very manual process and a bit time-consuming. I like to be efficient and make life easier, so I did some reviewing and noticed that there are really only like 5 models of machines, 85 different serial numbers, but only 5 types. So I sent off a quick email saying the following. Hi lady, not her name, but I'm calling her that here. I have a whole bunch of machines to add to the system, but I don't want to submit 85 different tickets to you. I checked out and saw there's only 5 model types. Can I send you the request in batches by model? Might make our lives a bit easier than going one by one. Now this lady is notorious for sticking to the rules. I don't usually mind because rules exist for a reason. However, they were also created by people and therefore can be changed by people. In this instance, I was hoping lady would understand that I'm trying to save us both time. Nope. Her response was, "It is unacceptable that you think you have the right to change the way we do things, especially that you don't even work in my department and have no concept of what it is that I do. We do not work however we want. We have procedures to follow, and if you are unfamiliar with these procedures, then it is clear to me that you need training." A new level of jerk has been achieved. You want me to follow procedures? You don't want to understand that I'm trying to help us both? Let's go then. I spend the next 3 hours creating my emails and ticket requests, but I didn't submit them as I went. Oh no, I waited until I had 85 of them ready to go. Once they were loaded, I spent a hilarious moment clicking send. It was like I was launching little torpedoes every time I clicked send, each causing small devastation as they build up in her inbox and overshadow anything else that might have been in her queue. Also, I know she keeps the volume on, so I knew that she'd be hearing that ding sound that annoys Outlook users everywhere. One by one, 85 different requests were running to her inbox like moths to a flame. I waited for the inevitable tantrum. "Hey, I see you're sending me a bunch of requests. Can't you just bunch them together? This is a lot, and it's messing up my system now due to the constant influx of emails and tickets." Did I forget to mention that our laptops are also super old? That many emails in one shot most definitely froze her Outlook for some time. I replied, "Oh, sorry that you're having a hard time. I was just following procedure, as per your request. I already sent them all, so nothing I can do." "Well, how many requests did you send?" 85. "What?" I then put my status to out to lunch. Have fun, lady. I'm getting a sandwich. Am I the jerk for kicking out my wife's parents for how they treated my mom? Last weekend, my mom and younger brother, who's 12, visited my wife and I. One of my sisters also lives in the same city as do my wife's parents. On Saturday, my wife invited my mom, brother, and sister, and my wife's parents to a dinner/get-together at our house, as our parents haven't seen each other since our son was born 6 years ago. I did not like the idea, but my wife was set on it. Our parents have never gotten along well. My in-laws are wealthy, whereas my mom has always been poor, and myself and my brother help support her now. At 51, my mom is also young compared to them, 70 plus. In the past, my in-laws have said some things about my mom that have upset me, but I've tried not to let it bother me. The night started badly when my wife asked my mom about her boyfriend, and her dad started asking her questions about him. Why didn't she invite him? What's his job? But then getting more invasive and essentially implying single moms shouldn't date and making remarks about her kids having different dads. I was already irate at this point, but my wife was able to deflect the conversation. Over the course of the night, they continued to make negative remarks that were directed at my mom. Even when my mother-in-law was congratulating my sister about getting into law school, she used it to backhand my mom by saying how impressive it was, considering where she came from. Mother-in-law also kept trying to police how my mom interacted with my son. A couple of times, she told my son off because he was playing with my mom, despite the fact I was right there if he needed disciplining. I could see my mom was getting upset, and because she was staying with us, she couldn't even leave. I was able to talk to her privately and asked if she was all right. She said she was fine, but she seemed very distressed. My mom has a history of mental illness and has an anxiety disorder that often leads to her struggling in social situations. My mom silently went to our spare room without saying anything to anybody else. I decided to politely ask my in-laws to leave and explained to them that I wouldn't tolerate them speaking to my mom the way they had that night. My wife and father-in-law tried to talk to me about it, but I told them I didn't want to discuss it right now. I just wanted them to leave. I didn't want to talk because I was already very angry and didn't want to lose my temper. After they left, my wife and I started arguing. She tried to downplay how her parents were treating my mom and make it seem like I was reading too much into their words. She also argued that even if I wanted her parents to leave, I should have discussed it with her first, ignoring the fact I couldn't have done that without extracting her from the conversation with everyone, and I was disrespecting her by not getting her permission. She now thinks I'm treating her family badly when it was her parents that wouldn't stop disparaging my mom, and I know she noticed because she kept trying to intervene. Am I the jerk for kicking them out? You're not the jerk. If your wife didn't think her parents were doing anything wrong, why was she changing the subject or direction of the conversation when they were insulting your mother? Not the jerk. You were right to stand up for your mother and ask your in-laws to leave when they were making comments like this towards her. It's understandable that you were angry and didn't want to discuss it at the time, and your wife should have been more supportive of you in that matter. It's not disrespectful to her family to address their hurtful behavior towards your own family member. Your wife should have taken your concern seriously and been more understanding of your feelings. It's important for partners to have each other's backs in situations like this. Neighbor complains about maintaining a hedge wall and then has to construct a wooden fence. This story happened about a decade ago when I was still a teenager and used to live in my parents' house. We are migrants and are on good terms with all of the neighbors since the 90s, but we do have a reputation in the neighborhood of frequently undertaking ambitious do-it-yourself home improvements and in an atypical manner to what locals expect. Our house is separated from the neighbors with a living hedge wall of cypress trees that grow on our property. At the time of this story, we already lived in the house for the better part of a decade with the same neighbors and the same cypress trees. One day out of the blue, one of the neighbors sees my mom working in the garden and starts complaining about the state of the living hedge on her side of the property. We usually trim the hedge only from our side and most of the top that we can reach. The neighbor complains and demands us to trim the hedge from their side as well. In her eyes, as the hedge wall is planted on our property, it's 100% our responsibility, and they're tired of maintaining it from their side. The altercation is very brief, as my mother surprisingly quickly replies, "Okay," and walks off grinning. Unbeknownst to the neighbor, we already were planning to cut down the hedges to the stump so that they could regrow anew, as the existing hedge was very old and was not particularly sightly. Previously, we postponed these works as we did not want to upset the neighbors, but this demand provided the perfect excuse. So the next day, while the neighbors are at work, we cut down all of the hedges surrounding our property to barely above ground. As we're finishing clearing up the trimmings, the neighbors come back from work and were shocked to discover the hedge practically gone. They looked around and realized that with the hedge wall gone, their whole backyard, kitchen, living room, and bedroom are on full display through the windows. The neighbor questions, "What have we done? And why?" as they would no longer have any privacy in their own home. My mom, without missing a beat, replies, "We fixed the problem. The hedge will no longer need trimming from your side," and goes back to clearing up. Within a week, the neighbors came back to us and asked for permission to construct a wooden fence on our property to protect their privacy. We happily agreed as long as they paid for it all, as we didn't mind waiting a couple of years for the hedge to regrow. Our privacy was much less impacted. They built the fence within the week, and it provided a good surface for some vine flowers to grow instead of the cypress trees that my mother had wanted to plant for a long time. Edit. People are concerned that the neighbors would be able to claim some of the land as theirs. This is not the case, as the property markers are still there, and nobody would ever move or tamper with them. Even if they did, this is in an EU country, and our land is marked based on specific coordinates and not some arbitrary lines such as a fence, no matter the situation. When the fence was being constructed, we made sure that this was the case. I should have originally specified that they effectively paid and constructed a fence for us that we legally own. My Karen mother-in-law installed a hidden camera in my bedroom. My husband, male 33, got into a car accident almost a month ago. He's been bedridden due to a back injury, and I've been his primary caregiver. The pressure has been too much from my mother-in-law. She keeps telling me to take care of him and be there for him constantly. She begged me to take time off work, and I did. Asked me to send her hourly updates about his condition the first 2 weeks. But when I didn't, she'd get mad and cause an issue. She visits every day, but doesn't do anything to help. Alternatively, she lists all the things I should or shouldn't do. The family keeps telling me she's just worried sick for her son, so I should try to stay calm. Days ago, she called to berate me about not replacing the sheets quickly. I had no idea how she found out since my husband didn't call her. My sister-in-law called me to tell me that her mom installed a camera in the bedroom to see if I was taking proper care of her son. I was stunned. After searching the room, I found the camera. I called my mother-in-law and had a huge fight with her. She admitted it and said that she was just feeling concerned and wanted to make sure her son was being cared for, despite him calling her every day. I yelled at her, telling her that she's no longer allowed into my home after this. She lost it and went on a rant about how I'm stopping her from seeing her son and that not seeing him will literally make her sick herself. The family called me later to get me to back out of this decision, but I told them she breached my privacy and took advantage of the situation. She said I'm taking it too personally and that I can't blame a concerned mother for wanting to make sure her son is fine, especially since she listed things she thought I was doing wrong. I ended the conversation, but my husband is upset, telling me I'm being vindictive and that if his mom can't come, then he'll move there for her. We argued, then I went outside and he's been silent ever since. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Report it to the police. Let your husband go home to his mummy. Let his broke body self go live with his mama, and when he gets better, the locks should be changed. Mama's boys and crazy mama bears are horrible. My wife is furious that I rented a goat to mow my lawn. So I, 30 male, hate cutting grass. I can't stand it. The sound of the lawnmower makes me wish I could take my ears off, like Mr. Potato Head, and lock them in a box. It hurts my shoulder. I got injured in high school and it never healed right. And I might be the only person in the world who doesn't like the smell of cut grass and gasoline. This week was the very first week of the year that I would need to cut the grass. We live in a fairly warm state, and the HOA is very strict about it. We even have little flags at the front of the yard that the grass isn't allowed to get taller than. So the point is, the lawn needs to be mowed. I don't want to do it. My wife can't because the last time she mowed a lawn, she tipped it into a lake. Just so happens I know a guy who owns a goat, and I offer him $20 to bring it over to eat the grass for me. The goat eats the grass, we keep her away from the neighbors' yards, goat goes home. It was great, way better than mowing. Except now my wife is mad because some of the neighbors saw the goat, and they think it's hysterical that we had a goat doing yard work for us. She's upset that I made us look like weird people in front of all of her friends. I don't care if they think we're a little weird. I'm happy to be laughed at if it means saving myself from the headache-inducing sound of a lawnmower. But now she's making weird comments around the house about getting a horse to carry groceries or a chicken to clean the windows since there's no man in the house who can do it. I didn't expect her to react so negatively to a goat, but maybe I'm missing something. So, was I a jerk? Edit. The goat does not violate the HOA's BS policies. They have strict rules against raising farm animals. But if, say, the HOA's president's daughter wants a pony at her birthday party for a few hours, that's A-okay. Not the jerk. You pick the more environmentally friendly and adorable option. Your wife needs to stop caring what the neighbors think, and maybe be less extra too. My wife would be thrilled at the prospect of having a goat to mow the lawn once a week that she could go pet. I'd also bet his neighbors would probably be more interested in it when they find out how little he's paying to have it done. Am I the jerk for telling my husband he ruined my birthday again? Background. Today is my 28th birthday. I'm really into birthdays and holidays and believe in celebrating them to the max, and this is well known to everyone. I'm also the planner and the giver in not only my family, husband and kids, but my extended family, parents, siblings, friends, etc. So I'm the one that plans birthday get-togethers, gifts, travel, etc. I'm also a stay-at-home mom due to having a son with a complex medical and behavioral needs. I've been with him 24/7 for the last week as it's school break and he's extremely clingy and has behavioral problems due to mental illnesses. I also had an upper respiratory cold during this time, sore throat, fever, cough, runny nose, earache, but kept up with the mom duties nonetheless. My husband's birthday was last month, and as usual, I planned something for him. Weekend in a town a couple of hours away for us and our kids. For my birthday, I tell him I just want help with the kids, the house cleaned, a nap, and him to cook supper or take me out. Maybe a homemade gift from the kids and a cake. Yesterday, my husband starts complaining of a sore throat. I check his throat and it looks fine. no fever or other symptoms. He stays up all night playing video games. This morning he says he's sick, but has no visible symptoms. No fever, no cough, no runny nose, doesn't sound like someone with a cold. He says his throat hurts, but spent an hour on Xbox Live talking just fine. He naps all day because he says he's sick. I think it's because he stayed up until 4 a.m. playing video games. Meanwhile, I make my own cake, take care of the kids as usual, and do my usual chores. He didn't even tell me happy birthday. Finally, I decided to take the cake that I made with the kids to go to my parents' house to have supper there so I didn't have to cook. I'm pretty crabby at this point and don't say a word before we leave. He calls and asks why we left. I tell him because he ruined my birthday yet again, and I'm trying to salvage it at least a little, and I hung up. He called back and said I was overreacting. He's sick and I'm an adult. Birthdays aren't a big deal anymore after 21. So, am I the jerk for wanting one day to be the receiver instead of the giver? To celebrate myself? Not the jerk. He sounds inconsiderate and like he doesn't even like you. Absolutely. And I think I have something else to add. There may be some people who say, you don't know how sick he felt on the inside. I agree. He could have been miserable and needed to sleep. OP isn't a doctor. But none of that matters. I'm a guy. It would take an insane amount of pain for me to not put together something for my partner, especially if I knew it was important to her. It's like when you're exhausted and you stay up Christmas Eve to put together the presents so Santa can give your kids a magical day. You find the strength from within. Your wife gave birth, you can do this. OP, I feel sorry for you and hope you find someone who appreciates you. Honestly, he's also an adult. If you feel like you're getting sick, even if it's not visible, you take some NyQuil, get in bed at a reasonable time, and get some sleep, and take a stupid amount of vitamin C the next morning. He knew he had one day out of 365 to not mess things up for the sake of his partner, and he let his own selfish wants take priority. He can let himself be sick tomorrow, but today should have been for OP. And even if he was too sick that day, he should have said, "Happy birthday! I'm feeling awful today. I know it's your birthday and you deserve a break, and I'd love to give you the gift you asked for. Could I do that on this other day once I feel better?" It's not that hard. He just doesn't care. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. You did your job in communicating what you wanted. The fact that he did not show any concern for you shows a lot. Caregivers need care too. You did not ask for advice, but I want to suggest the following. Don't bother with his birthday. Make plans on your birthday with others who are willing to celebrate you. You do not have to share your plans with him. He's irrelevant. Birthdays are nothing to him, so your plans don't need to involve him in any way. Finally, a belated happy birthday. Parenting is a thankless job, but it sounds like you're rocking it. Who told you to do it this way? Being a travel nurse in the operating room has its benefits. The pay, the ability to take time off between assignments, and the bits of malicious compliance that make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. Been at this hospital for 2 months. I've worked with this particular surgeon a handful of times, but it's always been the same procedure, so I know what he wants for every step of the case. I'm about to start applying skin prep, another layer of antimicrobial security to prevent post-op infection, to where the surgeon is going to operate. He always wants the armpit, front shoulder, and chest of the specific site prepped. We're operating on the patient's right side. They're already asleep, and their right arm is padded and secured on an arm board. Before I start prepping, the scrub tech immediately says, "You need to undo their arm so that you can prep the whole board." I tell them, no, the surgeon wants it prepped this way. The arm stays on the board. This scrub tech hadn't done this case with this doctor in quite some time either, but they still decided to explain how the whole arm should be prepped for this procedure. I just ignored them. I begin my prep. Less than a minute later, the charge nurse comes in to log into a portable x-ray device. Us travelers don't often get credentials for those. And the scrub tech decides to ask the charge nurse how the surgical site should be prepped for this case, right in front of me. The charge nurse backs up the scrub tech and tells me I should be prepping the whole arm in addition to the sites that I mentioned earlier. I protested, but the doctor doesn't want that. He always wants the same areas prepped and draped accordingly. The charge nurse wasn't budging, and they demand I unfasten the arm and do it their way instead. I sigh and say okay. Cue malicious compliance. I prep the whole arm and am holding it in my sterile glove while waiting for the drapes and stockinette to be applied. All of a sudden, the most glorious thing happens. The surgeon arrives with the charge nurse still in the room. "Did you prep that whole arm?" he asked me. "Yep." Why did you do that? You've been here 2 months. How do you not remember the prep by now? I was told to prep it this way. By who? Who told you to do it this way? The surgeon was upset due to this delay. As a traveler, I've learned to take the heat for making small mistakes, and I was contemplating taking the fall for this so that we could just move on with the rest of the day. But before I could speak, my charge nurse was actually humble and admitted that they had told me to prep the whole arm. The doc looked at me. Did you tell them how I prefer it to be done? I did. The doc turned back to the charge nurse and proceeded to lambaste her for delaying the case. The scrub tech just stared blankly at the wall, but I didn't look or listen. I just stood there, enjoying the moment with the biggest grin under my mask. It's a nice day when someone else proves you were right. Needless to say, I didn't renew my contract at that hospital. Am I the jerk for leaving my husband alone with the kids for 2 days? I, 24 female, have 2 sets of twins. The first are 5-year-old sons, and the second set are 3-year-old daughters. My husband, who's 27, always complains that the house isn't up to his standards and that it's a mess, or that I sometimes put on frozen meals instead of cooking us a fresh dinner. It's super irritating because I'm expected to do everything just because I work from home. He thinks that I have an easier job than his, since his is physical labor. I can never do anything because when he has time off, all he wants to do is sleep and says he needs it because he's exhausted from work, or he wants to use his break to hang out with his friends. So basically, all the chores are usually thrown on me, and I've had enough of it, and it came to show when my friend called me to hang out and when I asked my husband to watch them so I could go. He went into a rant about how he's tired and he's been working all week, and the least I could do is watch the kids so that he could get some rest because I'm home all day with easy work. So I decided, after I put the kids to sleep that night, to leave a note saying that I'm going to have a night out with the girls, which ended up turning into a weekend out with the girls. When morning time came, he was calling and texting me nonstop, and when I answered, he was yelling at me and going off on me. And when my friends heard the conversation, they were shocked and hung up the phone for me and told me to mute it. I didn't have any plans to stay any longer than that night, but when my friends overheard how my husband was talking, they convinced me to stay and even told me they'd take me out to eat and planned a whole day for me. When I got back, the place was a complete and utter mess, like pile full of dishes, garbage all over the place. Floors were sticky, the bathrooms were very dirty. My husband, of course, was angry and had a suitcase already packed. He barely said 2 words to me and just left and texted me saying he'll be staying at his mom's. Now I feel horrible because clearly he couldn't handle taking care of the kids for this long by himself, and I feel like a jerk, and I don't want this to ruin my marriage. Do you all think I'm a jerk for the way I acted? Not the jerk, but honey, ruin this marriage. You work full-time and take care of 4 kids under 6, cook and keep the house clean full-time? He expects to come home to a home-cooked meal, sleep when he's home, hang out with his friends? This is not a marriage, it's a joke. He's providing you 0 support and then whining when asked to help at all, or when things aren't perfect. It doesn't matter if your job is easier or not. It's probably not easier, just different. He's not entitled to mooch off of you. Honey, forget this. You can do it on your own. OP is basically a single mom already. With extra work, it's amazing the amount of housework a single adult can create when they're not putting any effort into cleaning up after themselves. And demanding home-cooked meals? Working full-time, plus all of the housework, plus the at-home childcare for 4 kids? Yeesh, that's going to exhaust anyone. She can lighten the load by decreasing the number of people making a mess and requiring mental and emotional upkeep. Not the jerk. I don't know what your husband does, but you have 4 kids in that house. Unless he's springing for a maid and/or a nanny, you're working 16 hours to his 8, assuming you both get 8 hours of sleep. I'll bet you don't. You may love him, but he clearly doesn't respect the effort you're putting in. Not the jerk, and I hope you divorce your sorry excuse for a husband. I'm divorced, and just about all of my friends are. I encourage as many women as possible to divorce their husbands because the truth is we can do a much better job of raising our kids without them. Take for instance something my husband used to do that drove me crazy. He always tried to get our son to play sports like football and baseball. He always said how important it is for boys to grow up competing with others to build camaraderie and get exercise and confidence. Keep in mind, at the time we were talking about a 9-year-old. Fortunately, I convinced my son early on that sports are honestly a total waste of time and there's so much more to life than throwing around a dumb ball. Now my son is 13 and he knows almost more about fashion than I do. His father can't stand it, but eventually he gave up trying to take him camping, hunting, fishing, and all that other useless crap that most of these idiots insist on teaching their sons. I even got the courts to reduce his custody because I proved that he basically forced my son to go hiking with him when all my son wanted to do was watch YouTube videos and talk to his friends online. Don't waste years of your life with a useless man-child living in your house like I did. Find a good lawyer and do it fast. Am I the jerk for expecting my boyfriend's parents to treat my daughter the same as his daughters? I, 37 female, have been dating Martin, 39, for what will be 2 years this June. I have a daughter, Scarlett, who's 10, and he has 2 daughters, Miley, who's 13, and Joanna, who's 12. I'm a single mother to Scarlett. Her father sends me maintenance each month, but has never been an active parent and has never met Scarlett. I also grew up in care, so I have no family or anything. Whereas Martin is divorced and shares custody with his ex-wife. Their custody agreement is very flexible, with the girls sometimes staying with him or their mom longer, or often spending times with both parents together. It really bothered me a lot that he was still good friends with his ex-wife, and Martin said if I couldn't handle the fact he could co-parent well and be amicable with his ex, then he would end things. I like to think I got over my jealousy and that the girl's mother and I get on. Anyway, since we've been dating a while and have started discussing potentially living together, I think it's only really fair that Scarlett is more involved and treated the same as Martin's daughters by his parents. She met them for the first time a few months ago and has since seen them a few times, but she's treated virtually like a stranger. At Christmas, Miley and Joanna were spoiled rotten. They got money, gifts, toys, gift vouchers, and makeup. All they got Scarlett was an embroidered blanket thing Martin's mother spent weeks knitting, apparently, with her name on it, 2 gift vouchers, and a doll. They'll take Martin's girls for overnight sleepovers, but my kid is excluded. They say because they don't know her that well and are uncomfortable looking after her for now. They'll buy Joanna and Miley sweets or little trinkets and give them a couple of pounds here or there, every so often, but as for Scarlett, they might only give her one thing and that's it. It's not fair for Scarlett. The last straw was when his parents asked if we would all like to go to Disneyland Paris and Easter with them. They offered to pay for Martin, the girls, and said they could pay for part of mine and Scarlett's travel expenses, but that I'd have to pay the rest. I lost it, and I told Martin he needs to tell his parents to treat Scarlett like his girls are treated. It's not fair to her that she has to watch her sisters being spoiled and she isn't. He lashed out in return and said my parents have been nothing but accommodating to Scarlett by including her in things and getting her stuff at Christmas and so on. He said I'm incredibly selfish to expect his parents to treat my daughter, who they barely know, the same as their grandkids. He said that I'm bitter and jealous, and it's not like we're married or living together. He used the example of the blanket being a really sweet gift that shows how much his mother cares. He also said it's perfectly reasonable for his parents to expect me to pay for my own kid to go to Disney, and that my parents don't need to pay anything at all for us. He also said I'm raising my daughter to not learn the value of the word no, and that she can just be expected to get whatever she wants. He also said that Joanna and Miley are not Scarlett's sisters. It's never been emphasized they were, and they do not view Scarlett as that. He said that I need to get my butt in gear and realize nothing is being done to discriminate against or exclude Scarlett. Am I the jerk? Edit. I view Joanna and Miley as bonus daughters, hence why Scarlett calls them her sisters. Joanna and Miley do not view me as a mother figure in any way, only as dad's girlfriend. It really hurts, but I don't think I'm being pushy or anything. I just think of us as a blended family unit, whereas Joanna and Miley have said I'm just the woman their dad is dating, and Scarlett is nothing to them family-wise. I've tried to get them to involve her whenever they're doing stuff, and they outright refuse, so they say that they are only tolerating her. Martin has chewed me out about this before, claiming I'm trying to insert my daughter in the friendship groups and activities of his daughters, and it greatly upsets Scarlett because she just wants to be included. She doesn't have a lot of friends, and I want Joanna and Miley to be her friends. I have no family, and Scarlett's father's family isn't involved. I've always tried my best to spoil her myself, but it seems only fair since we're part of Martin's family now that she's treated the same as Joanna and Miley. You're the jerk. It sounds like they're trying. They're giving her thoughtful gifts and offering to help pay for you and Scarlett to go to Disney. That's pretty generous considering you're not married and they only met Scarlett a few months ago. Frankly, you sound ungrateful and grabby, demanding that they treat her like an instant grandchild and lavish gifts upon her. It's also rather telling that you say their grandkids were spoiled rotten by their grandparents at Christmas. It reeks of jealousy and makes me wonder why you want someone to spoil your daughter rotten too. Exactly. Also to add that if you keep treating your boyfriend like this, you probably won't be around that much longer anyway. You're the jerk. To be fair, OP has never experienced a real family of her own. OP, it genuinely sounds like you don't know what it's like to be in a family that is more than just you and your daughter. Now you're dating someone who has a wonderful family life of his own, and you want that so badly that you're not taking the proper steps to get there. You and your boyfriend don't even live together, and you aren't married. You're trying to insert yourself and your daughter as though you're all family, but you aren't yet. I absolutely understand wanting that family life for yourself and your daughter, but this is not the way to get it. It's too soon. His parents are being generous towards your daughter while still respecting the fact that she isn't actually their granddaughter. She isn't even a step-granddaughter yet. Imagine how your daughter will feel if they jumped in and treated her as they treat their granddaughters and then you and Martin broke up. The loss for your daughter would be devastating. Your boyfriend has a wonderful family and you owe him an apology. You need to explain to him that you simply haven't ever had that experience and you realize now that you've been unfair and overzealous in your desire to be part of what he has, then back off. I won't call anybody a jerk because I don't think it's your fault that you don't know how to properly make a family, but you need to change your approach in a big way before this family becomes part of your past. You're the jerk. I can't imagine an adult saying, "All they got my daughter was a super thoughtful knit blanket and 3 other gifts." That's a lot. They absolutely don't have to pay anything for your trip to Disneyland. What is your deal? Are you using Martin and his family for their wealth? I hope your daughter is more grateful than you are. You don't upload until I tell you to upload. Alrighty then. Going to try to be as vague as I can since I still work here. So this happened many years ago, and the main character is actually someone else. But most of the staff knew the details of what happened. So first, some background. This company has a production process, and there are cycles of this process throughout the shift. At the end of each cycle, you do an upload, not the actual thing. This upload has to be coordinated across multiple work teams, and the person who does it has plenty of other duties, but this is one of the most important ones. Let's call this person's job title Upload Operator, and I'll call the person Rockstar. If this isn't done correctly, it can really slow down or even stop production. So the Upload Operator is typically pretty tenured and on the trajectory of being promoted. At this company, when we get new members of management, either external or internal from a non-production role, it's not unusual for them to go through a phase I personally like to refer to as knowing just enough to be dangerous, or dangerous phase for short. We had a new manager join the company. Let's call him Beavis. And they were assigned to night shift, which had become quite reliant on Rockstar in the interim. So Beavis went through a humble phase initially, and everyone really liked them and thought they would do well. Now, Beavis had actually taken a step or two down from their previous role at another company, wanting to do something less stressful. I only mention this because it seemed to fuel the hubris that was ultimately Beavis' demise. So once Beavis reaches the dangerous phase, the change from humble newbie to overcompetent jackwagon was jarringly sudden. One evening, Rockstar is doing what they do, and one work team was struggling to be ready for the upload. Now, this happens sometimes, but it's one of the only teams that doesn't necessarily stop production if they don't upload on time. Nevertheless, Beavis freaks out on Rockstar for uploading without them, and as Rockstar is trying to explain that we had to upload, Beavis tells them that they don't upload until Beavis tells them to upload. Period. End of discussion. Do you understand me? Cue malicious compliance. The rest of the shift, Beavis is paying zero attention to the operation. Not sure why they thought that was a good idea after such a contentious exchange, but here we are. All night long, team leads were calling Rockstar, asking what was going on and why we hadn't uploaded so we could go on to the next cycle. Rockstar just kept saying, "I'm waiting for Beavis to let me know we can upload." And all night long, Beavis was blissfully unaware of the crap storm he had initiated. Towards the end of the night, Beavis finally decides to take a look at some operational dashboards and realizes something is really wrong. Now, this situation might have resulted in Rockstar getting in trouble, possibly even losing their job, if not for the bonehead decision that Beavis makes once they've realized what had happened. They shut down the shift and went home without notifying anyone of the debacle or telling the night shift employees that they would need to come in the next day to finish the week's work that didn't get done because of him. When the day shift came in and were told they would have to come in on a weekend, there was a lot of backlash. Rockstar was ultimately told don't ever do that again, but was also immediately promoted to Beavis' position when Beavis was terminated post-haste. Security tells me no. Okay, it's no. I work for a subsidiary of a Fortune 500 as a manager of a dev team. I have 7 people under me. Think L3 people, very knowledgeable and driven to solve issues. We're all remote. I'm lucky my team is mostly great and we achieve the objectives that we're given. One day, the new security manager decides that devs are not allowed to be administrators of their laptops. He writes a new company policy for it. It's a crap show for us. It means my team can't work on some applications that require administrative rights. Also, as devs know, some bugs need my guys to install, deinstall, and reinstall the applications many times to make it work, changing only a few parameters each time. So I try to push back, saying it might impact our service level agreements, but the security manager doesn't want to understand and just sends me emails with "no" in bold caps. His boss is out right now for health reasons, so I can't escalate as I would have. The only way to make my guys work is that we need someone with the admin rights to unlock them when they need it. That admin is part of the support center. So, cue malicious compliance. I ask my team to create a ticket each time. They're not happy about it, of course. The support center manager isn't happy either because we create a lot of tickets and his team had been understaffed for a while. I also tell all the other managers in my department to do the same. And even though they create a lot less tickets than my team, it helps. Of course, this is my plan. If my team is unhappy, other people in the company are going to be too. So pressure piles up. The support center manager is unhappy. His boss saw the number increases too, so he's unhappy too. He talks to my boss, but hey, I have emails from the security manager. The support center manager asks me to be reasonable and asks for a number of hours per week. I'm a team player, of course, so yes, I want to help him. I ask for 20 hours a week for a guy from his team to sit around waiting for my team to need him, unlock their install, and then wait some more. I'm guessing the admin is pretty happy about it because it's way less pressure than his normal job, and there's not much to do but type in an admin password once in a while. It helps reduce, or not increase, the number of tickets, but the support center has less people, so they resolve tickets less than before. Then comes the climax. One application has a critical bug outside of the hours of support center guy. So I tell them, as per my agreement with the support center manager and obeying the security manager, my team can't work on it yet. We'll have to wait until the next day. It's a healthcare product, so it means a lot of our customers are going to be upset about it. Can't say too much, don't want to be found. Of course, I'm a reasonable guy. The support center manager is too, so we find someone with admin rights and put my guys to work. The resolution of the ticket takes much longer than usual to solve because of all the back and forth between the admin and my team. During the post-mortem, it's found that the new security policy was the main delaying cause. Every member of my team told the post-mortem woman that, as I did. I have all the emails I sent to the security manager highlighting the risks of this new policy and him saying he didn't care for it. I sent that to the post-mortem as well and let her find her way into the politics. 3 months later, the security manager doesn't work for us anymore, and most members of my team, but not all, have admin rights on their machine. I learned that the support center manager had made his mission in life to complain about the security manager to everyone who would listen and to have him fired. And the support center manager knows a lot of people in the company. His director agreed with him, and with the post-mortem woman, or her boss, not sure at that point, they convinced the VP to fire the security manager even before the security director came back from his health issue. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.